afternoon. Welcome to 580 Sports Talk for the final time this week. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you from 3 until 6 today. We've got so much to get to leading up to Royals baseball tonight. And maybe, just maybe, their best chance at a series win all year. They will play the Oakland A's for 3 games this weekend. Oakland is pitiful.
We had a listener earlier this week suggest that the Orioles-Royals series was the baseball version of the toilet bowl. The Orioles are too good for that distinction at this point in the season. Brother, this is your toilet bowl. You were just 1 series ahead of the game. This is, on paper, as bad as it gets. An 8-win team and a 6-win team. 2 of the worst pitching staffs in baseball. 2 lineups that aren't all that great either.
Yeah, here's the really bleak part of this for one team in particular. At the very least, you look at the Royals and you can say, you know, Vinny's next. Like he's got a chance to be, you know, the next big thing for this team. Witt, who's not starting tonight, you look at and say, yeah, there's the tools. He was a huge prospect, et cetera, et cetera. You can look at a number of players and say, all right, I see it. I can get it. There's at least something here to build from. What do the A's have?
Mason Miller.
He'll start on Saturday.
It's like their one...
Or Sunday. He'll start one of the games this weekend.
Yeah. He's their one young pitcher who's had some good results early because their other young pitchers have gotten bombed. They got 3 regulars, not even that. 2 regulars under the age of 26, 3 under the age of 27.
They're bad. They're really pathetically, horribly bad. It's almost sad, really. Like, I know these guys are getting paid to be for professionals, and I understand that. You at some point have to actually perform, but it's hard to watch. I watched them for a full 3 games when they hosted the Cubs earlier this year, and I thought, wow, it is shocking how terrible this team is. So we'll talk some Royals baseball later on in the show. Hopefully a chance at a series win for the boys in blue, even though they made some very strange roster moves, I thought, today. We'll get to all that coming up later on in the show. We do have some NFL to get to. I wanted to take something we talked about earlier this week regarding the Chiefs and their rookies and expand it to the whole NFL and just kind of a final thought a week out from the draft about the instant impact rookies being infused into the league this coming year. We'll get to that momentarily. Matt Derrick is also going to join us bottom of this hour for our Chiefs Insider. Matt, of course, from ChiefsDigest.com. Plenty to get to there. His final thoughts on the draft as well. Rick Peterson is going to stop by, finally going to get Pistol on the line this week on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for the Invista Credit Union High School Whip Round. We'll talk all about Pistol's impending induction into the Topeka Shawnee County Sports Hall of Fame, as well as the rest of the Hall of Fame class. So cool for Pistol. We'll play our first round of Is It Good for the Major League Baseball season in the 4 o'clock hour.
I've missed playing Is It Good?
Yeah, it was a staple of the NFL season.
Yes.
I'm glad we're bringing it back.
We did a lot of NFL Is It Good? Maybe a little college football Is It Good? We're going to do a little Major League Baseball Is It Good? Or in one humorous, at least to us, case, is it this bad?
Yeah. Is this miserable? We'll get to that. Plus, we'll take, again, a look ahead to the Royals weekend. We'll tell you what's on tap for the weekend, including the Kentucky Derby. We got the ponies, folks. That's coming up tomorrow late afternoon. Our weekly championship for What Is Wrong With You. A bunch of 580 Sports Talk headlines, including the playoff roundup. We will get to all that and so much more over the course of the next 3 hours here on 580 Sports Talk. And as always, we would love it if you wanted to be a part of the show today. Hit us up on the text line. Let us know your thoughts on anything we are talking about. 785-272-9429. That's the text line number. And you can hop on to the YouTube live stream as well. Our YouTube channel is called Sports on 580 WIBW. Just head to YouTube, search that. Just type it into the search bar. It'll be the first result. That's where you'll find all of our live streams, catalog of old shows, our other online content, all that on YouTube, Sports on 580 WIBW. Mark in the comments, wishes us all a happy Cinco de Mayo. Indeed.
That's right.
Remember, that is not Mexican Independence Day, folks. A lot of people have that confused. That is not true. Read a book. Also, Christopher on the YouTube comments, little fact for us. The 1899 Cleveland Spiders allowed 1,252 runs for the season. The A's may make a serious run at that figure. I have not looked into the raw numbers, but the fact that that can even be joked or seriously commented about is terrifying.
244 runs allowed by the Oakland Athletics in 32 games. So that's 7.625 runs per game. We extrapolate that over 162. That is 1,235 runs.
17 runs off the pace.
They're not that far off the pace right now.
Royals
That's
bats.
just one extra run a week.
Royals bats. Let's get them. Let's push them toward history. Let's put up some crooked numbers this weekend, Kansas City Royals. Wow, that is absolutely jarring. We've got more baseball to get to, though. I wanted to start with the Kansas City Chiefs. And earlier this week, when we were talking about this draft class, our favorite picks, how they fit, value, all those things, we talked about the instant impact factor for this draft and how many of these guys can be counted on to have roles right away. Also, how badly do the Chiefs need these guys to have important roles right away? How important is that going to be? And we also talked about how, was this draft really as improbable and unpredictable as we were led to believe going into last weekend? We remember all the talk about nobody knows what's going to happen in this draft. It's going to be unthinkable. There's going to be so much that happens. But in reality, it wasn't, it was exciting. There were lots of trades and definitely tons of intrigue, but not a ton of, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. But when you look around the entirety of the NFL, are the Chiefs alone in maybe not having a ton of guys who are going to blow your doors off immediately? Like, how many guys that were drafted, and I know it's hard to go through 259 or 61 players or whatever it was who got drafted last weekend, but were there a whole lot of guys who were taken, especially by contenders when you're picking normally later in rounds? Were there a lot of guys who were taken who you say, oh yeah, that guy's going to be a problem right away? I don't know what the answer is. I think the number one answer to that is on the side of yes, there were some. You look at Dalton Kincaid for the Buffalo Bills. And if you're specifically talking about teams that are going to challenge the Chiefs at the top of the AFC and for a bid in Super Bowl 58, I think that's the number one answer right there. Because we liked Dalton Kincaid a whole bunch. I know our friends on Mic'd Up loved Dalton Kincaid a whole bunch. A lot of people thought he was either tight end 1 or 2. Then right before the draft, it was, no, he's going to be the first one taken. That feels like an instant impact guy for the Buffalo Bills. But when you look at the rest of Buffalo's draft, the Cincinnati Bengals, everybody else in the AFC West, maybe you point to Quentin Johnston for the Chargers as an example of that, another first-round pick. Does anything stand out to you as these teams got immediately start of 2023 better because of who they took last weekend?
In the AFC?
In the AFC, specifically.
Among contenders. See, I don't know that there's like a slam dunk yes to that question. Except for the closest, I guess, would be Baltimore.
Okay.
And Baltimore adding Zay Flowers is such a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
That is maybe right off the rip the best receiver that Lamar Jackson's had in his career in Baltimore, potentially, if that all breaks right. And look, it may not. Look, we have seen enough wide receivers drafted that part of the draft who it doesn't shake out just right for. We all lived through Jonathan Baldwin, right? So
right.
Like, maybe it doesn't hit, at least not right away, but on paper, that feels like it should really work. They didn't have like a ton of draftees necessarily. They didn't pick again until the third round. Trenton Simpson, linebacker, I think can help their linebacker rotation, but I don't think they got any other like instant impact guys in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
But I like what Zay Flowers brings to that offense. They've had a good offseason. Now they extend Lamar Jackson. I know everybody wants to talk about Cincinnati and Buffalo as the two nearest challengers to Kansas City's AFC throne, and I still think that's fair. But Baltimore, to me, is maybe next. Like, they might be next behind those two teams.
Interesting.
provided Lamar Jackson is healthy. Because, look, they made the playoffs last year, and they went to Cincinnati, and they held Joe Burrow's 17 points. And if they don't fumble at the 1-yard line, they might win that game.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, they were doing some things right on the defensive side of the ball last year. They're in good shape on that side. They had to, A, get Lamar healthy, and B, get more potent on offense. And they've added Zay Flowers and Odell Beckham Jr. to that receiving core. If Lamar is back to 100%, I think that's a team that can challenge Cincinnati in the AFC North and make a real run in the AFC playoffs.
I would argue Baltimore, to me, among the top half of teams in the AFC, I would argue that Baltimore is the most fascinating team to me going into next year. You've got Lamar long-term. He is the guy. You have hitched your wagon to that guy for how great of an athlete he is. I believe he's an underrated passer. I don't think he's Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers in terms of just natural gift at throwing the ball, but I think he's an underrated thrower of the football. He's not as bad as, for whatever reason, some trolls want to make him out to be. They have an entirely new offense coming in, or at least a somewhat new offense with Todd Monken now as their offensive coordinator. Gone is the Greg Roman, the Greg Roman cycle. First 2 years, running quarterback, just unstoppable running game. Year 3, okay, there's some chinks in the armor. Year 4, hey, maybe you actually should pass the ball at some point. That's what Greg Roman has always done everywhere he's been. Now you bring in Monken, who I think is a better offensive coordinator just in general. What is that offense going to look like? Are the new pieces going to fit together? I agree with you. I think Zay Flowers is the best fit, maybe among any early drafted wide receiver. Him and Jackson Smith and Jigba in Seattle, probably the two best natural fits, I think, based on those offenses. I think they are a fascinating team to keep an eye on. And if that's the missing piece that, hey, we need one more playmaker and you took him, I can certainly see the argument for that. Looking at the other drafts for teams that are contending, so to speak, in the AFC, I look at the Bengals as an example of this because I think they're generally considered, I would consider them the second best team in the AFC.
Been to back-to-back AFC championship games.
Right.
So, yeah.
I think Miles Murphy was a good pick. I like Miles Murphy a lot. Is he a kind of guy that changes this immediately for them, though? Or is he going to play a role? Maybe he plays a little bit more than Felix does right away for the Chiefs as a comparison, but I don't think that's going to be a complete game-changer pick for the Bengals.
No, I think so. The Bengals, to me, the things that they needed to address and stabilize and fortify in a major way were the defensive backfield, the secondary, and the offensive line. Now, obviously, we went on the offensive line. They signed Orlando Brown Jr. That was a big deal for them. That helps them. That, with some better injury luck, should make them better up front, potentially even better than they were last year. But, like, through the draft, did they do enough to address the defensive secondary? Are they going to be good enough back there after losing both of those safeties? That, to me, is a question. And this wasn't maybe the draft to address that in the first round. This was not a good safety draft. Like, Brian Branch was there for them when they picked in the first round, but it was not a very good class behind him.
And to that point, that's actually a great thing to bring up. I've got ESPN did a write-up and pick analysis for every team, and the Bengals writer, Ben Beatty, he wrote regarding their third-round pick, Jordan Battle, another safety from Alabama. He actually wrote that this is explicitly a pick for depth, that they didn't add a starting caliber safety this year. They took a guy who they think at some point could be, but right now he's depth in special teams.
Now, I like DJ Turner in the second round to the cornerback spot, but again, they lost, and not just like two guys playing safety, two replacement level guys that they should be able to replace no problem. No, Jesse Bates is one of the best safeties in the league. Von Bell's a good player. Those are big losses for that defense.
No, I would agree. The other team I took a look at right off the bat, LA, the Chargers, because they are the second best team, at least for now, in the AFC West. I don't know that they are actually going to be a contender in the AFC as a whole. I would lean toward no. I like the pick in Quentin Johnston in the first round. But again, how much does that change the problems that they have had over the last couple of years? Do they feel like their protection is in a good spot? I believe they do think that because they took one offensive lineman this year, and it wasn't until pick 156. So I think they think their offensive line is fixed. All right, fine. Are your receivers going to stay healthy? Keenan Allen banged up last year. Mike Williams, flip a coin. He might be hurt right now. I mean, that's just kind of who he is. Does Quentin Johnston fix that problem? I don't know that they did enough to fix their run defense, which is really bad for a supposedly genius defensive coach. They drafted Tuli Tuipulotu from USC, an edge rusher. Not admittedly sure how good he is against the run off the edge. I do know he's talented getting after the quarterback. They also took a linebacker, Diane Henley, from Washington State in the 3rd round. Did they do enough to raise the floor? I think that's generally what you're doing with the draft. You're doing floor-raising moves as opposed to ceiling-raising moves.
That's accurate, yeah.
That's more of the free agency thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did the Chargers raise their floor enough to suddenly make themselves more realistic contenders? I don't know that they did. In fact, I would say they didn't. But I don't know how many guys there were available in this draft to do that with, which is kind of my overall point, that we can talk about the Chiefs and how many instant impact guys did they add, or how many options did they have, and if no one else who's in there or on their level did that either, I'm not sure it's that big of a deal.
So, sorry, you just threw me off. I was trying to pull up the full draft class for the Chargers, and the first article that came up was the 2022 draft class. So that's not helpful to me at all. Like, I know they drafted Isaiah Spiller last year. Don't care. So they added some depth at wide receiver. I think that was one of the biggest things they had to do was add depth at that position, because for all the jokes we made at Justin Herbert's expense last year for what that passing offense became with Joe Lombardi, part of the reason that passing offense was slowed is because you missed Keenan Allen for a bulk of the season, and you missed Mike Williams for a bulk of the season. And it seems like you're always missing those guys for a chunk of the season as they get older. And generally, as players get older, they don't get a lot healthier. So clearly, there needed to be some additions to that wide receiver spot. And they got in Quentin Johnston and his college teammate, Darius Davis, a couple of guys who I do think can help them right away in that regard. But yeah, the rest of their draft class, like Tuipulotu is a good addition, but it's just, it's depth. Like he's not going to, he doesn't come into to address a position of need, more to fortify a position that was kind of already a strength for them with Bosa and Mack.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that they did enough to raise that floor on the defensive side of the football in particular. Offensively, if it pans out for Quentin Johnston, I think that they're in better shape in the passing game, and it should just be better addition by the subtraction of Joe Lombardi. But yeah, I don't look at the Chargers and see a team transformed.
The one other AFC contender, and I mentioned them already with Kincaid, that I think had the best draft that fills their needs with guys who can impact their team ASAP, I think is the Bills. Because Kincaid is a playmaker right away. I like the Osiris Torrance pick. Getting him at 59, I thought was a pretty good value there if he was considered by some to maybe be a first round or certainly early second. I like getting him there. He'll compete on their offensive line. They had a linebacker from Tulane, Dorian Williams, in the 3rd round. They needed a linebacker to replace Tremaine Edmonds. I thought they had a very solid draft. Again, it may be just more depth right away, especially once you get 3rd round and later than instant impact guys. Were there any teams in the NFC or just elsewhere in the AFC? I know we talked Texans and Colts in terms of their approach to the draft yesterday or 2 days ago, in fact. Were there any other teams, though, that we haven't gotten to so far that kind of piqued your interest, that this fit looks so good, maybe it does change their trajectory next season?
Well, I think we have to say that the Eagles got better. I mean, they end up with 2 first-round picks.
They got more athletic.
Yeah, they get more athletic on the defensive side and should continue to play at that level, the level that they played at on defense in regards to the pass rush in particular last year. That should be sufficient to make them, like, we all know how hard it is to get back to the Super Bowl after you lose it in particular. Right. Like it's hard to even, like, you got to credit the Chiefs and the Bengals the last 2 years for getting as far as they did in the seasons following a Super Bowl loss, getting back to the conference championship game. Even that is hard to do, to get that far the year after you lose the Super Bowl. But the Eagles are as well positioned as those 2 teams were to get back and make another deep run in the NFC, combined with the fact that the NFC itself isn't very good all the way around. But yeah, the Eagles in particular, and then I think you have to say the Seahawks. I think you have to say that they're a team that can make a run at San Francisco. Now, San Francisco's got a more talented roster top to bottom, but their quarterback situation is a question mark. And that may cost them some games on the front end of their season while they're waiting to make it work with Brock Purdy. Flip side, if they can make it work with Brock Purdy for as long as they did, maybe they can make it work with Sam Darnold or with Trey Lance or whoever it is taking those snaps for the first 4, 6, 8 weeks, however long it is for Purdy to get back on the field. But if they leave an opening, Seattle's poised to kick down the door with the additions they made. And again, the commonality here is if you have 2 first-round picks and one of them is pretty high up in the draft, then that's a ceiling-raising draft. That's a draft where you're bringing in that level of talent, where the teams we're talking about in the AFC, the teams we consider contenders, it's hard, and the Chiefs know this, to raise your ceiling in the draft when you're picking 25th, 28th, 31st.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think that's entirely fair. I was looking at the Eagles draft because I forgot who they took in the second round. Then I was reminded of it, and I thought, dang, this draft is even better than I thought it was. Referencing how well the Eagles have done in terms of pouring resources into the trenches, and talk about how teams always say you win in the trenches. You need to be good up front. You need to be good on the offensive and defensive lines, but don't do nearly enough to shore that up. What have the Chiefs done in the last few years? Now, they were going to be good in contending anyway because of who their coach and quarterback are and the offensive talent. But they have put a massive amount of resources into the offensive line to make sure it is among the very best in the league. And even if it's not a ton of stars around Chris Jones, the Chiefs have put a lot of money and a lot of draft capital into the defensive line. Players they like, players who can get after the quarterback, who can stop the run, etc. They've put a lot into that. The Eagles, on the other side of that, they've had great players along that defensive line for years now. They're getting older. Fletcher Cox, older. Javon Hargrave leaves in free agency. Barnett is older. Josh Sweat's a good player. Who's the other edge I'm forgetting? Not Barnett.
Reddick.
Hassan Reddick. Who's the other one? Brandon Graham. That's the other one. That's the one who's
the veteran.
Yeah, he's very, very old.
Football-wise.
Football old, yes. But they add Jalen Carter then this year. They add an edge rusher in Nolan Smith. They take an offensive lineman in Tyler Steen from Alabama, a starter for that offensive line. Bryce Young was barely sacked last year. And oh, by the way, they still had a top 3 offensive line in the NFL last year. Chiefs and Eagles, 2 of the best teams, 2 of the model franchises in the league this year, pouring all that energy and all that capital into their lines. It works. What a surprise that those 2 teams have figured that out. We're going to take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt Derrick will join us to talk more Chiefs football a little bit later on this hour. But first things first, we'll come back. We'll play some Change My Mind coming up next on 580 Sports Talk.
David
580 Sports Talk, just getting things going here on this Friday edition of the show. Brendan and Dan here with you, taking you into the weekend on this Cinco de Mayo. Time for a little change my mind. And might also need to change his camera angle. Your camera got bumped on the YouTube feed. There we go. We're back. Also, your microphone's not on.
I'm back. I'm all the way back.
All right, it's changed my mind time. Matt Derrick's going to join us here in just a second on 580 Sports Talk. Changed my mind. Depth is no longer a necessity in college basketball. It is a luxury. And the reason that comes about, KU today lost Zuby Ejiofor to the transfer portal. I was not surprised by that at all. I understand it. I'm bummed because I like Zuby Ejiofor, and I think there's something there. And I think he'll end up in a pretty good spot. But Hunter Dickinson comes in. He's in the same class as Ernest Uday. There's a chance KU adds another 6'8", 4-man in Mackenzie Mbako if he ends up choosing KU in his recruitment. KJ Adams is your backup 5 and also might start at the 4 or be your super 6th man. There's only so many minutes on the floor. I get why he left. As the portal becomes more important and more focused on by top teams, this is not going to be a thing. Like, teams are not going to plan for depth anymore. It's just going to be a luxury if they end up with depth.
I think you're probably right about that. And I think that we have seen that it is very possible to make a deep NCAA tournament run and, in fact, win a championship with a 6 or a 7-man rotation functionally. The depth is nice. UConn had great depth, and they rode that in part to their championship last month. But yeah, I think that your roster building now kind of has to be, we need 7 guys. And if we're able to develop some guys and maintain some depth along the way, that's great. But the primary focus is on the top 6 or the top 7 guys. I think that is where I will agree with you.
I think it would be great to have that, but I think going forward, we're going to have more teams locally and just on a greater scale that have issues like KU had this past year where, dang, we said it all January, February into March. KU's 5 at their best, without foul trouble, without injury, any of that, can beat anybody. But if you have to dip into the depth, like they did in round 2 of the NCAA tournament when the bigs kept getting in foul trouble and then DeJuan Harris got banged up, that's when you're going to run into problems. And guess what? They completely did. I think that is going to become more and more common as we go forward. As big name players transfer, younger guys, underused guys are going to say, I'm not sticking around for this. So I think that is going to become more common going forward. We'll talk more about that in headlines, by the way.
All right. I would like the commentariat on YouTube or the text line 785-272-9429 to change my mind on this one, because I don't think you're going to have an opinion on this. In fact, I know you don't have an opinion on this.
Is this a beer question?
This is a Cinco de Mayo question.
Okay.
Change my mind. Commenters on YouTube, texters listening to the program. The margarita is the best cocktail.
The best cocktail?
The best cocktail.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have an opinion on this because I've never had one. It looks fun. I'll tell you that. It looks like a fun time. Got salt. Do you salt your glasses when you have one?
Yeah.
Okay.
On the rocks with salt, absolutely, 100%. The margarita, it is perfection. I might have to go track down a place to go have one tonight.
Are you a frozen margarita fan?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. You know how many frozen margaritas I drank on my honeymoon down in Puerto Vallarta?
I believe it.
It's
plenty, I'm sure.
Dozens.
Yeah.
Plural.
I mean, I used to go out with friends on Marg night to certain restaurants in a certain town that may or may not card people at the age of 21.
The broad appeal of the margarita is what makes it number one for me.
Kind of a party drink.
Because it is, but it's also one that anybody can order. Like, anybody can have a good time with a margarita. Like, that's not like, if you have a group outing, chances are, like, if somebody orders like a Jack and Coke, you know who that is. You know who's drinking that.
Yeah.
If somebody orders like a mojito, you know who's having that. But like a margarita could be anyone.
Yeah, that's fair enough. We've got an answer from Vance on the YouTube comment section who says he would go with Sex on the Beach instead, and says he's more of a gin and tonic or martini guy. I will say this again. I don't ever plan to have one, but if I were to just like pick one, I think I'd pick a martini so I could feel like James Bond.
You do feel cool when you drink like a Manhattan or like any kind of martini out of a martini glass. Like I think you could drink anything out of a martini glass as long as an olive were floating in it and feel awesome.
Yeah.
It could be like a glass of water. You'd still feel like super sophisticated.
Oh, I definitely have put like orange juice in a wine glass before just to feel fancy.
Here's the thing about the Sex on the Beach peach schnapps. I'm not a peach guy. Can't do it.
See, I think I like peach flavor, but also again, I would not consume alcohol, so hard for me to say. We will get more answers on that coming up. Text line, YouTube comments, chime in on Dan's question. We're going to take a quick break, and Matt Derrick is going to hop on with us next for our Chiefs Insider on 580 Sports Talk.
Frank Miller.
name is Matt.
Are you ready?
My name is Matt.
Let's go.
His name is Matt Derrick. He is our Chiefs insider from ChiefsDigest.com, and he joins us every Friday here on the show at the bottom of the 3 o'clock hour. You can go find Matt on Twitter at Matt Derrick, and you can also find Matt and, of course, all his great work over at ChiefsDigest.com. Matt, before we get into the Chiefs today, and there is plenty of news to get to, this was brought up by Dan in our last segment. Are you a margarita guy?
That is literally the only alcoholic drink that I do partake in.
Really? Interesting.
Looks like he's not going to change my mind. My thesis on our Change My Mind segment was that the margarita is the best cocktail, and it seems that you agree.
I do agree. I mean, you can have a bad margarita, because you can use some bad tequila and everything, and you can just have it mixed poorly. But I mean, from a flavor standpoint, I mean, the best one I ever had was a mango Rita.
Interesting.
So as for someone like myself who just does not try many different things, I will try just about any flavor of margarita.
Interesting. I couldn't have an opinion. I don't drink myself, so I wasn't sure. I know they look fun, but I didn't know what they tasted like.
I know it's some people, and we have a commenter, Vance, on the YouTube stream that says he had a bad night with tequila and can't do tequila anymore. And I get, like, we've all been there with an alcohol, if we have been there with any kind of alcohol. But nah, man, I'm a Lucero. The tequila never done me wrong.
Well, see, and I have, not to get too dark or, personal here or anything. I have a great empathy for anyone who has addiction because I consider myself very fortunate that alcohol is one of those things that I just do not care for. I mean, margarita is the only thing I like, and I haven't had one in 4 years. But, I would partake in one, but I hate beer. I hate all these other things. But my God, I have not had a Dr. Pepper since April 4th. And I do think that every day that this may be the day that I die. So I completely get all addiction.
Oh my gosh. I think we've all had a feeling like that a time or two. Well, Matt, we've got a lot on the Kansas City Chiefs to get to. We'll get to plenty of draft here in just a moment, but I did want to start with Donovan Smith. That news broke late on Wednesday, I believe it was, that the Chiefs were signing Donovan Smith, the longtime Tampa Bay Buccaneers left tackle. Before we get to alignments and playing time and all of that, how surprised were you when that news came down the pipe that the Chiefs were going to add Smith, the former Bucs left tackle?
Honestly, the only thing that surprised me about it was that he was still available. I kind of forgot that he was still unsigned and out there on the market. Because that was a guy that I thought earlier on that if he was healthy, that might be a guy that the Chiefs could be interested in. But, you let this time part, go away. And now remember, we are past the deadline now for draft picks or for compensation picks and everything that, teams will get. So that's going to make it a little bit easier and more likely that teams will sign some other teams draft, free agents. Guys, I got Friday brain apparently, guys. I'm thinking about margaritas. I'm sorry.
Hey, it's been a long week. It's a feel good Friday. Nothing but good vibes, Matt.
There you go. I mean, those are the only things that surprise me. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's a low cost investment, and if it hits, you feel like that the Chiefs got a pretty good situation. And if it doesn't, I mean, they've taken a shot. It's like I said, I don't think there's a whole lot of downside to it.
So what do you think the conversation was like with Juwan Taylor, if there was one with Juwan Taylor, about where these guys would play? Because it sounds as if the plan is Donovan Smith will be your left tackle for 2023 and Juwan Taylor will be your right tackle, which in terms of playing time makes sense. I believe Smith has never played a snap anywhere other than left tackle, and Taylor has played 99 or 98% of his career snaps at right tackle. So that makes sense. But we also were told at the time Taylor was coming in to be the left tackle. So do you think that there was some sort of conversation like, hey, we need you back at right tackle for 1 year? Was it you're the left tackle until we find someone better? What do you think those conversations were like, or what do you know those conversations were like?
Well, that is one reason why the Chiefs opted for Juwan Taylor over probably a lot of other prospects that were out there. Because one, I mean, he's been a right tackle, but and two, they thought he could play on the left side. But three, he's willing to play either place. I mean, the Chiefs, did make it clear to him that even though, hey, they're signing him, and right now you'd probably be the left tackle, they left it open. I mean, they were like, hey, we may still draft a guy that's going to be a left tackle. We might sign someone else that is going to compete at left tackle. So there was no guarantee, but what they got from him that they didn't have with their previous tackle in that situation was that he had a willingness to play either one. And that's, it wasn't that important to him to be either left or right. I mean, so that was the appeal that the Chiefs had with signing Taylor. And now you see why that flexibility is important, because they get to a spot where they're able to pick up a guy like Donovan Smith, which they may not have, 2 months ago when they signed Taylor, almost 2 months ago, didn't necessarily have Donovan Smith as maybe the guy that was on their mind. I mean, they might have been looking at the draft. Maybe there were some other players, left tackles that they were looking at. But the signing of Taylor was all about flexibility. And it's not just this year, but going forward, because, now, I mean, I think you could see this is, if Donovan Smith is a 1 year stopgap solution as left tackle, does that allow you to groom someone like a Wanya Morris to be your left tackle of the future? and Taylor just stays at the right side. I mean, to me, you probably this year you go with whatever you think that those guys are going to be going forward. Jawan Taylor is your right tackle of the future. Keep him at right tackle and don't change a thing. If you think that Jawan Taylor is going to be your left tackle of the future, put him there now. But they've got options. That was a big part of the Taylor signing, was to keep that flexibility.
Our guest is Matt Derrick. He is our Chiefs insider here on 580 Sports Talk, and he joins us every Friday at this time here on 580 WIBW. You can see Matt's work at ChiefsDigest.com and find him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Matt, do you think that if a starting caliber left or right tackle, or a player that the Chiefs evaluated in that way, had been on the board at number 31, that they might have taken that player with their first-round pick and maybe not made the Donovan Smith signing? Or was the Donovan Smith signing sort of the plan B, you think, that if they weren't able to find a tackle that they loved and could start and plug in right away, that they were content to do that and not test the free agent waters?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit on it there, but in the sequence of events that makes a whole lot of sense, which is that, you know, if you thought that you were not taking a potential left tackle in the draft, probably, you know, other than the draft pick compensation, wasn't any reason why you couldn't sign Donovan Smith for the draft. Makes it easier afterwards, obviously, for the deadline to have passed, but connecting the dots that way makes a lot of sense. And, you know, and Brett Veach never closed the door. I mean, he definitely left the door open. The idea that if there was a left tackle available, they would have taken him. And I do wonder, you know, we do know that the Chiefs were looking to try and move up in the first round. The conventional wisdom is that they were looking to move up for a wide receiver, but I wonder, like, you know, one of Morris's teammates, Antoine Harrison, you know, being there and going at 27 to Jacksonville. I mean, that was exactly the kind of spot that the Chiefs kind of, you know, relented, that they were going to like, okay, we're going to stick at 31 and we're going to take Felix. Was that the final player that they were interested in? I mean, I think you could definitely connect the dots and make that argument that that's probably what happened.
Let's talk about that draft class, Matt, which we really haven't had a chance to do with you. The draft wrapped up since the last time we had a chance to chat with you on these airwaves. Which rookie do you think makes the biggest impact for the Chiefs, and how many of these 7 players could you see making an impact? The Chiefs obviously got tremendous impact from last year's draft class. It looks like they hit on 8 of the 10 guys they drafted on. It would be unfair to expect the same kind of hit rate from these 7, but how many of these guys do you see making a real impact for the 2023 Chiefs?
Yeah, I do think it's going to be a sizable number. I mean, Felix, you certainly expect is going to be a fairly important rotational piece. And I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he was eventually got up into the 40, 50% of snaps. I mean, I think they want to keep those guys fresh up front, and he could be an important part of it. Rashee Rice, I think, bare minimum, I think, can play himself into being the number 4 receiver on this team, and maybe even more. I think there's definitely a pretty high floor for him as a rookie. Wanya Morris, I mean, offensive lineman, unless he steps and wins his starting spot, which I don't think is likely, probably not so much there. Chamari Connor, would expect him to probably be a number 3 and number 4 safety, but playing a lot of special teams. I mean, he might end up leading the team in special team snaps. That's the kind of player he is. B.J. Thompson reminds me a lot of Josh Kando. I mean, they're both kind of the high testers that we just now need to see if there's, you know, some translation. And I think the Thompsons had a lot more translation into production in college than Kando did. So there's some reason to be optimistic, but the Chiefs are also talking about maybe putting 10 to 20 pounds on him. And that's a lot to ask of a guy as a rookie to bulk up and play. So we'll see. Keandre Coburn, I think, has got some real prospects of playing a lot this year. You know, it wouldn't surprise me, especially with, you know, losing Colin Saunders and Tershawn Wharton's coming back from an injury. And Coburn is really the only guy that they've got other than like a Danny Shelton type that is that true nose that they've been seeking. I mean, I could certainly see him playing some significant snaps. I mean, probably not a starter, but 20 to 30%, probably his ballpark. And Nick Jones, I mean, unless there's injuries, I think that's the guy that's just there to kind of be a developmental piece. Maybe he's even a practice squad guy. But I think there's at least 5 of these guys who can make significant contributions this year.
Matt Derrick is our guest, our Chiefs insider from ChiefsDigest.com. That's where you can go find all of his great work covering the Kansas City Chiefs. And of course, you can follow him on Twitter as well, at Matt Derrick on Twitter. The Shamari Connor pick, Matt, in particular, does that feel at all to you like a similar player defensively to L'Jarius Sneed? And is that maybe potentially a future L'Jarius Sneed replacement?
Really good question. I mean, both fourth-round draft picks, right? And had similar college experience in that Connor's played every position. I mean, you lined him up a little bit as a linebacker type at Virginia Tech. So he's got a lot of flexibility, probably the opposite in that sense of L'Jarius, in that I think L'Jarius was a corner who was playing safety, and Connor seems more like a safety who plays some corner. I think that gives you a lot of flexibility, though, at least in the short term. But it does raise some questions. I mean, everything I've heard from the Chiefs so far is that they really do expect him to remain at safety. But I think he's a nice companion piece to L'Jarius. But what it begs me to ask is maybe a little bit about the future of Justin Reid, because I think we may have talked about it last week. If the Chiefs took a safety in a decent round this year in the draft, it's got me wondering, because Brian Cook is going to be a starter this year. The Chiefs feel pretty good about him. But if you take a safety, then somebody you think can be a starter down the road pretty quickly, Justin Reid's got it out in his contract for this season, and makes you wonder, hey, do you go a different direction if Connor plays well this year? I mean, once again, it gives you some salary cap options when it comes to that position.
Who is your favorite pick overall for the Chiefs class?
There's a lot to like. I mean, Felix is really, really growing on me, especially just the story and the attitude. I mean, I'm really looking forward to getting him in the locker room, a chance to talk to him, because he seems like somebody who's going to be a lot of fun to cover. I think Rashee Rice might be the breakout player of this draft class. I mean, you look at what the Chiefs need, and I mean, in retrospect, the Chiefs were just screaming that they were going to take Rashee Rice, and I feel like I just overlooked some of the obvious clues, and because I think we just should have known that this was the guy that they were going to take. Really fits their needs. That's why I say I think he's got a higher floor than Sky Moore does, because he did a lot at SMU. He was very productive, and he fills the one need that the Chiefs have, which is kind of a physical receiver who's a little bit bigger, that can fill some space and beat some zones, and that could be incredibly valuable for the Chiefs, who, when they just want to be able to knock some defenses out of playing zone and throw it at them all day, Rashee Rice can develop into that guy.
Final thing I've got for you, Matt, not necessarily Chiefs specific, although it could be. Was there anything that happened any of the 3 days of the draft that made your jaw drop, that you said, wow, I can't believe that happened?
I think it's mostly anytime that the Detroit Lions made a pick. I was pretty perplexed consistently by the Lions. That one really stood out, maybe. And then, the other thing was how many times that the NFL just absolutely let the Philadelphia Eagles get better. I don't understand how so many guys drop to them, and then, obviously drafting in front of the Chiefs with a couple of plays probably helped too. But gosh, I mean, and the Eagles took some guys that only they could take, or only a team that with their kind of culture could take. But gosh, that's just a scary draft class they ended up with.
Yeah, we were talking about them earlier as one of the teams that definitely raised their floor with their draft this year, and maybe even raised their ceiling too, with a guy like Jalen Carter at the top. You can go find all of Matt Derrick's phenomenal work covering the Kansas City Chiefs over at his website, ChiefsDigest.com. You can also find Matt on Twitter. His handle is at Matt Derrick, and he joins us every single Friday at the bottom of the 3 o'clock hour for our Chiefs Insider. Matt, we appreciate the time as always. Hope you enjoyed Chiefs headquarters at the draft last weekend, and we will talk to you next week this time.
I was going to say, it sounds like you guys had a great time downtown last week. So we'll have to, hopefully Kansas City gets to do that again.
Yeah, it was a good time. I enjoyed it. I know Dan and Fulton, who you talked to last week on Mic'd Up, they had a good time. So yeah, if it wanted to come back next year, I would not complain, Matt.
There you go. Let's work on that.
That is Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. Awesome insight, as always, on the Kansas City Chiefs. Head to Chiefs Digest for all the best coverage of the Kansas City Chiefs. That's going to do it for hour number 1 of 580 Sports Talk today. We're going to take a break for the national and local news here at the top of the hour. But when we come back, it is the return edition of Is It Good, the first baseball edition of Is It Good on 580 Sports Talk for the year. We're just over a month into the season. What teams are good, what storylines are good, and what teams are actually just bad. Hello, St. Louis Cardinals. We've also got our weekly championship for What Is Wrong With You coming up, and we'll talk to Rick Peterson for our Invista Credit Union High School whip round about the Topeka Shawnee County Sports Hall of Fame inductees. It's all next hour right here on 580 Sports Talk. 2 of the Steel Good Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk is on the air. Brendan Dorzinski and Dan Lucero here with you until 6 o'clock today. We've got plenty more to get to, and we would love to get your takes on anything we're talking about on the show, either via the text line. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. Or you can hop into the comment section on YouTube. The name of our channel is Sports on 580 WIBW. Go subscribe if you haven't. Super easy to find us. Just go to youtube.com and go to the search bar and search Sports on 580 WIBW. We will be the first result. Click right there. Subscribe to us. That's the best way to find all of our video content. And there's more and more of it every single day over there. From the comment section, our guy Vance says he is headed to the NASCAR race this weekend. We didn't make 580 Sports Day at the Kansas Speedway happen this month, but I'm still hoping we get out there at some point, and looking forward to Vance's report on that.
Absolutely.
It looks like a blast. Like, going to one of those races looks like a fun time. And one of these days, we're going to make it out there. So excited for anyone who's going to head out there. I don't know. Do you know how many people can sit at the Kansas Speedway?
High five figures, isn't it? I don't know the capacity.
I don't either. I would imagine I can find it on 48,000. That's actually smaller than I thought, to be honest.
Yeah,
with
they
you.
reduced from 64,000 to 48,000.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't feel a lot bigger than that.
Yeah. I remember they had some sort of crazy attendance number when they played that college football game at Bristol a couple years ago.
Mhm.
Who was that? Virginia Tech, Tennessee, I think?
Yes.
Yeah, it was like 160,000 people or something.
It was the bonkers number.
But, I mean, you can have way more seats for a football
Yes,
field.
they've got a full bowl seating at Bristol that
Yeah.
you just have the one-sided grandstand there at Kansas.
So that is coming up. We'll talk about what other sporting events, major sporting events, are coming up this weekend, including my beloved, the Kentucky Derby, coming up on Saturday. We'll handicap the ponies coming up. Our good pal Andy Weingarten, formerly of WIBW, was on with Jake and Fulton earlier today, delivering his picks for the 149th Run for the Roses. Will you make this appointment viewing tomorrow?
Nope.
I've asked you this before. I just do not remember your answer. Have you been to a track before?
No, I have not.
Oh, man, it's a blast. It is awesome.
I say it won't be appointment viewing, but if I'm around a TV and it's on, I will put it on.
Fair enough.
If it's, post time and I know it's about to be on, maybe I'll flip over there. Just doesn't get the juices flowing. I mean, I know some people say it's the most exciting 2 minutes in sports.
That's right.
I just think those people have never watched Nolan Arenado try to go first to third on a single.
It takes all right, that's funny. That was well done. I will make it like, hey, honey, I need to have the TV on at 5:47. I need it to be on NBC at this time because I love the Derby. So we'll talk about that in the rest of the weekend coming up.
Is that the post time this year? It's not 5:78.
All-time great 580 Sports Talk moment. Jake saying the post time was 5:78. In other words, 6:18, I suppose.
I guess that's what that would be, yeah.
Oh, my God. All-time
Then he tried
moment.
to say I was doing Army time.
Makes even less sense. It's in the morning? Oh, my God. That is funny. That is too funny. Someday, if we were both out for something, we could just do a clip show of our best of 580 Sports Talk folder.
We really could. Just roll old What Is Wrong With Yous. And
Yeah. 3 hours of What Is Wrong With You from the vault. Like it's Christmas at a national sports station or
Right.
sports network. Oh, man, that's funny. Coming up this hour here on 580 Sports Talk, we will get to some baseball here momentarily. We've also got our weekly championship and What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. And our good pal Pistol, Rick Peterson, is going to swing by for a day-late edition of the Invista Credit Union High School Whip Around. He will hop onto the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline with us to talk all things high school sports, and especially this year's class being inducted into the Topeka Shawnee County Hall of Fame. We said this the other day when we had the news. I think that was on Monday when the list of inductees came out. We know Pistol is not going to want to make this about himself, but it's our show, so we are going to make it about Pistol coming up at the bottom of this hour, and he absolutely deserves it. Again, your texts, welcome, 785-272-9429, and your YouTube comments as well. Our channel is called Sports on 580 WIBW. The baseball. let's get to some Is It Good? I will tell you that the baseball wagering as of about 3:25 today, good.
Okay.
Cubs run line, back. Been a while. The entire NL Central had lost 18 games in a row until the Cubs beat the Marlins 4-1 today. 18 in a row. I don't even know how that's possible. You should run into one, but no, they had lost 18 in a row as a collective. Cubs run line, that one felt good today. Our pals at FanDuel had a little profit boost for us. Use that on the Cubbies.
Still trying to decide if I'm going to
good.
put that on tonight.
Got plenty of options. Everyone's in action tonight, I think.
I got to see.
Except for the Cubs and Marlins.
I got to see what the Mets lineup looks like against Antonio Sensatella of the Rockies tonight. That might be. I now that Jose Urena has been designated for assignment, I need a new Rockies pitcher to fade, and Sensatella might be that guy.
I think we could argue we should put the Mets into Is It Good today.
Okay.
They have been crappy as of late. They just got swept by the Tigers in a series that included Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander on the mound, which once upon a time would have been for the Detroit Tigers.
Right. And it's not just that they got swept either. They lost a 1-run game. They got blown out in Scherzer's start, and then they got shut out in Verlander's start yesterday. Shut out by Eduardo Rodriguez and company.
I'm going to say that they are still good because they have too much talent not to be, and we're still only about a month, just over 30 games into the season. But that would worry me if I was a Mets fan. But I also think Mets fans are just in a constant state of worry anyway.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of peace if you are a fan of the New York Mets, it seems.
You spent all this money, and what do we got? Like, the season started with some bad vibes. They lost Edwin Diaz, to the patella tendon injury he suffered during the World Baseball Classic. So the season kind of already started under a bad sign. Max Scherzer has not pitched well. Really nobody on their entire pitching staff. They're 9th in the National League in earned run average. But like Verlander will stabilize things, and certainly Scherzer will get it going. The back of his baseball card doesn't lie. They'll be fine. I don't know. I think I picked the Braves to win the National League East before the season started. I still stand by that, but the Mets are a playoff team. Like I don't think they got too much to panic about.
I would agree with that. Let's begin the official list of teams and topics in Is It Good Baseball Edition today, 1 month into the season, with the team that is right now the best in baseball, the Tampa Bay Rays. They had a relatively easy schedule to begin the year, and they crushed it.
Yes, they dominated.
What was it, 11-0 to start the year?
It was 13.
It got up to 13.
Yeah, 13-0.
They are still...
So 13-6 since then.
Yeah.
Which is still pretty good.
Yeah, chump change ever since then. The Tampa Bay Rays, are they good? Maybe we should ask, given their 26-6 record, for an early season team, are they great right now?
Yeah, I think they whip. I think they're pretty great. They've got it all, man. They got a deep lineup that can hurt you from the left side and from the right side. They've got young players like Wander Franco, 22 years old, looking like this is his superstar turn. He's got 18 extra base hits already. Brandon Lau back in that lineup, making a big impact after his year last year was kind of a wash. Josh Lowe having a big year, former top 50 prospect. He's breaking out in right field for them. Shane McClanahan might be the best starting pitcher in the American League so far on his current form. He's got 203 earned run average. Their bullpen's terrific. Never mind that you've never heard of any of these guys. Just know that they're good.
Sounds like the Rays.
And they get the last 9 outs. Look, there's a reason you would hire a manager from this organization, and you would want to bring thoughts and procedures and ideas from this organization, because I think it's hard to say, like, we can quibble with some of the methodology as far as we're never going to pay any of these guys market value. We're just going to let them all go as soon as they get good, or trade them before they reach arbitration so that we can be cheap about it. Like, we can quibble with those methods. I think there is something a little bit distasteful about not spending the money to go out and really make it shake if you're the Rays. Because if they went out and they had added, like, what if they'd added Justin Verlander this offseason? Like,
I would have thought something went wrong. Was why are they spending money?
Right. Like, what if they had spent some money to put a little weight behind some of the studs that they've got who are making like $10.50 an hour plus tips on their pre-arbitration contracts? Like, then forget about it. as it stands right now, they're the best team in baseball. I think they're going to remain one of the best teams in baseball all year long. They're definitely going to the postseason. They're definitely equipped to make some noise when they get there. And for the Royals part, I mean, if you look at the Rays, like that's what the Royals want to be someday. And obviously that wasn't going to happen in a year. Rome was not built in a day, but you can understand when you see the success that this organization has year in and year out, developing young players, maintaining a steady supply of big league talent in the rotation and in the bullpen. You can understand if you want to bring some of that alchemy over to the Midwest. And you hope that it's not just one guy in the dugout, that some of those ideas and some of those the thought processes and some of those techniques for developing players and informing major league players and bettering major league players. You hope some of that makes the trip too from Tampa to Kansas City.
As we always say, you can't have a perfect lineup. Not everybody is going to be a 300, 400, 500 guy as their slash line. Like that's just not going to happen. There's not enough talent. There's not enough money, etc. But you don't want to have black holes. You don't want to have, like what the Royals have at the bottom of the order, where it's, here's three guys. Hunter Dozier and Jackie Bradley Jr. are both starting tonight. Like, those are black holes. That's just, okay, well, you're going to make outs. That's somewhere between 6 and 8 outs between the two of them tonight, in all likelihood. You look at the Rays, of their usual 9, their lowest OPS plus is 89. That's Manny Margot, which is a bit below league average. It's not miserable, but it's a bit below average.
And he plays a lot, but he's a short side platoon guy mostly. He doesn't really hit right-handers very well.
Of the rest of their usual 9, the other 8, their lowest OPS plus is 118, and 7 of them are 120 or better. So 20% better in the OPS category than the major league average hitter. Now, those numbers are going to flatten out a little bit over time, but that lineup is awesome. Plus, they have 2 of the most fun players. One you mentioned, Wander Franco, and Randy Arozarena, who's one of my favorite players in baseball.
Their team OPS right now, on base plus slugging, is 876. In a ballpark where it is not typically easy to hit. Like Tropicana Field generally plays as a pitcher's park. They got 876 team OPS. Just to give you an idea, Vinny Pasquantino's OPS is 907.
That's pretty crazy. And Vinny's been great.
Yeah.
Vinny's been tremendous. What's the Royals team OPS?
668.
I shouldn't have asked. All right. That is not good. That would be the bad side of the is it good question. Let's go to team number 2. We'll stay in the American League for this one. It's the team the Royals just played. The Baltimore Orioles. Are they good?
I don't know. For the Orioles part, it feels like they've got more guys maybe playing a little bit over their heads. Like, I don't think Jorge Mateo is going to OPS in the 900s all year. That would be a great surprise if all of a sudden this player who's never hit for any power slugs 595 for a full season. And pitching wise, like Tyler Wells came into that Royals series leading the American League and walks plus hits divided by innings pitched, or whip. And that was no longer the case after he left Kansas City, even though his whip is still very good. They got a bunch of pitchers who are outperforming their fielding independent numbers right now. And even saying that, they still have the 11th worst ERA, or 11th best, 5th worst ERA in the American League. So no, I don't think they are quite this good, but I do think they might end up where they ended up last year, which is a team that gets into the 80s and wins. They just don't have enough pitching. Like they don't. Like Grayson Rodriguez, who we saw yesterday, is kind of their great prospect hope. And while he's striking out a bunch of guys, like there's going to be some trial and error with him. And he's going to be on an innings limit anyway, because he's a young pitcher who was injured a lot last year.
Yeah.
So like, I don't think they're going to make a real push in the American League, or in the American League East for that matter, with Dean Kramer and Kyle Bradish making a bunch of starts. Like, it's just not going to happen. They don't have enough. And again, you want to talk about an institutional failure to go out and get some pitching. What would it look like if Baltimore had gone and signed Justin Verlander? Because unlike the Rays, they can do it. Like, they can really do it. There is money to be spent in the coffers of the Baltimore Orioles. That's a much larger market than Tampa Bay. But,
yeah, they can spend the money. That's never been a question.
Yeah, for them, it is much more of a choice.
Yes.
Everybody, to an extent, who does not spend money in Major League Baseball is making the choice not to. But for some teams, it is harder to spend that money.
Yeah.
And Tampa Bay, it is harder. Baltimore, no, it shouldn't be hard. But if they had addressed their pitching, I think they would be good. I can't say that right now. I still think they're probably closer to average.
On just a binary, are they good? Are they not good? I would lean toward yes, they are good. Partially because they've got some fun players. And again, fun players. Cedric Mullins, really fun player at the very top of that list. I would agree that I don't think they're a real American League contender. I think they are inherently flawed. They feel like an extremely boom or bust team. Like they've got 10 games this year where they've scored 7 or more runs. And that's a third of their games. They're scoring a boatload of runs, which is great. I mean, they've got the ability to hit for power. They can hit for contact. They can run pretty well.
Speed, yeah,
tons of speed. But they've also got a number of games in which they've signed or scored 1 or 0 or maybe 2 runs. Again, almost a third of their games so far. So there's a lot of boom. There's a lot of bust with that lineup, which concerns you when you get to the important parts of the year and certainly once you get to playoff time. I do think they are going to contend for a playoff spot. I think they are fun, and that should at least mean something, especially when it's not your hometown team. That, I could dive really into the numbers, but you know what? They're fun. I like watching them. Their pitching worries me, though. I agree. Those names, that doesn't feel
not great. And they don't have a ton coming up from AAA either.
Doesn't feel like a real deep into October kind of playoff rotation. Next up, flipping over to the National League, the number one. Barbara on the YouTube comment says, even with Ryan O'Hearn? Yeah, yes. Even. That's a fair point. That is a fair demerit against the Ravens, against the Orioles, I think. From the National League, the Pittsburgh Pirates. Are they good?
I'm going to say they are not. They are 20-12, and they've lost 4 straight. So they started 20-8. They've lost 4 straight. I kind of think that's the direction this is going to go from here. You talk about guys hitting over their heads, like Connor Joe, Jack Sawinski carrying OPSs over 900, Jason DeLay. The guy who we all thought was going to maybe carry their offense this year or be a big part of their offense, O'Neal Cruz, broke his ankle really early in the year. He's going to be out most of the season, which is a bummer. Like, this would feel a little better if O'Neal Cruz were in the middle of this. You'd be like, well, yeah, this may be what it's supposed to look like. Pitching staff, like Rich Hill's 43 years old. Can he do this all year? Vince Velasquez hasn't been this good for a 7-start stretch, maybe in years. Can he keep doing this? Bullpen's got a bunch of no-name guys. Some doesn't necessarily mean they're bad or can't sustain it in a short sample size, but I don't trust it yet with the Pirates. They were so bad. Their big free agent acquisitions this year were Rich Hill and Carlos Santana. Like, they're not supposed to be this good, and so I have my doubts. I think somebody's going to run them down in the Central. Just don't really know who, because as you mentioned earlier, the National League Central not out to a great start other than Pittsburgh. I mean, they had lost, was it, did you say it was 21 straight, 18 straight games?
18 straight entering this afternoon. 18
straight games, and like, it's one thing to be Pittsburgh and, you got swept by Tampa Bay. Milwaukee just got swept by Colorado. So, it's not a great division. Maybe there's some staying power there, but no, my lean is that this the party is going to come to an end in Pittsburgh sooner rather than later.
I think Santana is actually a good case study in why I don't believe in this team, and I do not think they're good. And they've played well, and they get credit for those 20 wins in 32 games. Remember the couple of years Santana was with the Royals when he would start the year really well? All right, hey, maybe there is still some juice here. And then by the middle of May, it was, there's not any juice. In fact, he's quite bad. The last time Carlos Santana had an OPS over 700 was 2019, his all-star year, 2019, last year second to last year with the Guardians. He has not broken 700 with his OPS since then. He's currently sitting at 790. That just feels like, the regression is coming. That's a hot start, and the regression is coming.
You mean a guy who's had a batting average on balls in play over 300 once in his career shouldn't be expected to do it again this year?
At 37 years old, having just turned 37?
With no speed to speak of? Although it is very funny that he has 3 stolen bases already this year.
We've gone too far. We need to make it harder for the slow guys to steal bases again. But no, I do not think they are good. I think they have taken advantage of some hot bats and some decent pitching performances, but unlike some of those other teams that we talked about that are fun and you can see the vision and et cetera, I don't think this team is good. Like, Carlos Santana is currently 4th on their team in wins above replacement. If he finishes in the top 14, that's a win for him this season on their team. So I'm not thinking Pittsburgh's actually that good. That feels like a bit of a mirage. Final one for us, sticking with the NL Central. The St. Louis Cardinals. Are they bad or are they no, really, they're bad? Because they've played badly so far. Like Pittsburgh, their record is good, but I don't think that team is very good. The Cardinals have played badly. So the real question is, are they actually that bad? Or is, again, this something of a mirage?
Them being bad would be good. I would enjoy that very much. The Cardinals in my lifetime, I don't think they've been bad since the early 90s. The early Tony La Russa years were the last time the St. Louis Cardinals had a losing season was 2007.
That was the year after they won the World Series, wasn't
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
They had a losing year in 99 and in 97, and they were terrible in 94 and 95. So yeah, early mid 90s, last time the Cardinals were really bad. Right now they are 10-22. That is the worst record in the National League. They are not the worst team in the National League. They're going to have a better record than Colorado. They're going to have a better record than Washington. Are they this bad? No. Nolan Arenado looks wretched at the plate right now, but again, sometimes you got to look at the back of the baseball card. And I think Arenado is one of those players you can say, yeah, he's not going to OPS in the 600s all year. He's going to get better. But they got some problems on the mound, man. This is a bad pitching staff.
They strive for having problems. They suck on the mound. They are awful. Miles Mikolas, 5.79 ERA. Jack Flaherty, the Jack Flaherty experience might be winding down.
Close to 6 walks per 9. That doesn't hunt.
6.29 ERA. Steven Matz, they brought him in to be an innings eater. He has pitched 31 innings over 6 starts and has an ERA almost at 6.4. Jake Woodford has made 6 starts for them. His ERA is in the mid-5s. Their pitching is awful.
And the guy they think is going to, return to stabilize things is in his 40s. And how often does that work out? That, look, I'm not writing off Adam Wainwright because Lord knows I've done it before and been wrong before. So I hesitate to do it again. But, he's going to come back and give you some, solid innings. But he's not going to, they don't have a top-of-the-rotation presence. Their bullpen has really struggled. They are walking a lot of guys. They have allowed more hits than any team in the National League, which is wild because, again, Colorado plays in the National League. They're not as constructed a real great defensive team, even with Arenado at one infield corner. I don't know. The pieces don't feel like they fit, but the Cardinals always seem to have a way of figuring it out. They're in very real danger. They banked all these losses. They got a hole to climb out of, but given the Cardinals' track record, given the fact that the phrase Cardinals devil magic exists, would you be surprised if they were the last team standing in the Central at the end of the year?
No. Well, and with how awful the division is. I will say this about the Cardinals. How many of their good players, if you just went down the roster and said, okay, yeah, Paul Goldschmidt, that's a good player. Nolan Arenado, that's a good player, even if their numbers aren't great so far this year. How many of their good players are their own players, are guys that they developed?
Tommy Edman's a good player. It's weird what's happened to some of their younger guys. Tyler O'Neill's kind of it looked like he was going to be a stud. He had some injuries and now he's hurt again. Dylan Carlson looked like he was going to be a player and he's kind of stalled out a little bit. Jordan Walker came out like gangbusters, but he can't play the outfield. What
if Edward Olivares was a better hitter?
No, what if Edward Olivares was worse defensively? That's Jordan Walker. He can't do it. He was so bad at it, they sent him down.
I know I said this the other day, and I know that I could not be a professional athlete. I could be Serena Williams in a tennis match. I'm not one of those idiots, okay? I know I could not be a professional athlete. But I do wonder, some guys are really good at playing the outfield because they do have an innate knack for, taking the right angle, or they've got a good arm, or they're fast or whatever. How do you play it that badly? I know it's a hard job. All professional athletes have one, but how are you that bad at that? That does not compute to me. More so than like kickers missing field goals, or more so than guys who can't shoot free throws.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you play the outfield badly?
As a former outfielder, part-time, it's not easy.
No.
There is no worse feeling than the realization that you have misplayed a ball, that you have come back on a ball that is not going to get to you, or you have come in on a ball that's going to get over your head. It is not easy. But yeah, there's a lot of guys out there that just they can't figure it out, or they need more time to pick up the nuances. Not everybody turns into Alex Gordon, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, my answer for the Cardinals, they are not this bad. They will get better. They will be in the mix in the Central. It would be very funny, however, if that were not.
It really would be. That is it good? We are going to get to a commercial break. We'll come back. We've got today's What Is Wrong With You coming up on 580 Sports Talk.
Wesley is a truck.
The hell? What the hell?
Time for a quick week-ending round of What Is Wrong With You before we get to Rick Peterson. As a reminder, What Is Wrong With You is brought to you by Top City Metal Supply, who cuts the metal you need to your specifications, which saves time, money, and material. Never settle for metal. At Top Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field here in the capital city. The par 4 punchers still are winners for the week. The gentleman who got in a fight on a golf course, including slapping, pushing, tackling, and some very embarrassing kicking over the group in front, playing too slowly. I think that story's got some real competition from both of our stories today. Mine is going to take us to Coral Springs, Florida, where a former Dunkin' Donuts employee was arrested and charged with burglary after returning to a restaurant in full uniform, serving customers, and then when he was asked to leave, stealing money from a cash register. This happened back on April 27th, where police responded to a reported theft by an ex-employee that had taken place at the local Dunkin' Donuts. According to the arrest report, upon arrival, a store manager showed officers surveillance footage of the suspect, a former employee known as Maximo Rosario, a 31-year-old man, wearing a Dunkin' Donuts uniform and appearing to attempt to clock in for work. The report shows that confused employees attempted to reach the manager by phone to ask if Rosario was a new employee. Rosario had not worked there since December, and he then went and immediately removed money from the cash register. According to the report, an employee told officers they could interrupt Rosario's theft. They distracted him and then put the money he had taken back inside the register without altercation. Rosario, unfazed by his failed theft, proceeded to walk to the drive-thru area and served customers, seemingly in an effort to appear that he still worked there. After watching Rosario continue working, employees gave him a yellow sticky note with the regional store manager's number and asked him to leave the employee-only area. After he agreed to leave, the report says Rosario said he first needed to use the restroom. After he left the bathroom, he then removed money again from the register, a grand total of about $30 near the drive-thru. The report shows that working in conjunction with the police department, the Coconut Creek police were able to locate Rosario standing in a median on State Road 7, and they detained him from there. Records show that during a search of Rosario, $30 fell from the bottom of his pant leg onto the ground. Upon questioning, he admitted, yes, I did steal that money that just fell out of my pants. He was released after posting $1,500 bond.
Wow. He went to some great lengths to steal some money from the Duncan.
Yeah. Just needed some cash. Thought, oh, you know what? They'll never even notice. April 27th is when this happened. April to December, nah, we're fine.
I think they're on to me. I better take some orders.
No, I work here. Yeah, we need a large iced coffee, 2 creams. Chop, guys. That's essentially what that was.
He just took a headset, started taking orders. Yeah, we'll have your total at the window.
I will not be there, though. I got places to be. I got cash to grab.
Wow. That's hilarious.
Your story has started to make some national headlines.
Yes, we are going to Kansas City, Missouri, home of the 2023 NFL Draft. And 2 students from the USC Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism, which is USC's journalism school.
Very good school.
Were on location covering the draft for Annenberg Media, which is the student-run multi-platform news outlet. Eric Lampkins II, who is a graduate student who is a U.S. Army veteran, and Jude Ocanius. Lampkins and Ocanius were in Missouri, and they were at the NFL Draft. And around 1:20 a.m. on Friday, after the first round wrapped up, they snuck into the talent waiting room, stayed about 5 minutes, and then came out with a bag full of jerseys. They stole 3 jerseys from the room, a San Francisco 49ers, Dallas Cowboys, and Minnesota Vikings jersey, all of which had the number 1 printed on the back with no player names. So these are obviously the placeholder jerseys to hand to players who are selected with the first choice of their team's respective drafts. Now, the Cowboys did have a first-round pick. They took Mozzie Smith. The Vikings had a first-round pick. I'm blanking on
Jordan Addison.
Jordan Addison. And the 49ers did not have a first-round pick.
No.
But, maybe they would have traded into the draft. So you've got all of these jerseys that are on site and ready to be held up with a nameplate on the back, and they were not used. So Ocanius and Lampkins helped themselves and took them away. But they were caught on camera doing it, and officers arrested them just before they were to board a flight back to Los Angeles. Police searched the students' baggage and found the Cowboys and 49ers jerseys. The missing Vikings jersey was not mentioned among the recovered items. The trip to cover the draft was paid for by the Annenberg School and USC.
I am going to imagine they are going to face some sort of punishment from their school along with law enforcement.
I'm going to say they don't go to that school, or at least they don't belong in the department anymore.
Yeah. I never had to be told in journalism school, don't steal from events you're covering. I think they just sort of assumed that. Yeah,
that you wouldn't go where you're not supposed to go and take things that don't belong to you. Like, there's all kinds of free stuff as media you can help yourselves to. And Lord knows I have. Media guides, cans of soda,
food,
pastries.
Yes.
Cookies.
A lot of cookies.
So many cookies. I have helped myself to because those are for us.
Occasionally, like beef jerky bags or pens or playing cards.
Yes. Lots of swag from media days past that I still have and don't have a lot of space for. But no, man, you don't steal like the draft pick jerseys.
Oh, man, that's funny. Who you got for today?
It's tough.
Yeah, these are two good stories.
I'm kind of leaning toward man, you can't steal the jerseys.
No. I can't believe they got in. You were there. I mean, there are people from the NFL everywhere.
All kinds of security. The fact that they got into the talent room, that's wild to me.
Especially on night one.
Yeah.
There are people everywhere. I'm shocked by that. I think I might actually pick that one. I'm going to flip my pick. I was going to go with the former Duncan employee because that story is really funny.
Mm-hmm.
You're journalism students, man. Like, this should be J101 stuff,
You're on
guys.
a school trip. It's a school trip.
That's the winner for today. I think that wins the week.
I do too.
I think that knocks off the par 4 punchers. That is our winner. And what is wrong with you? Brought to you by Top City Metal Supply.
The Jersey Boys.
The Jersey Boys.
Great job. Great job from the 785 on the text line.
That is phenomenal. Well done. Rick Peterson's up next on 580 Sports Talk. Thankfully being super flexible with us is the one and only Rick Peterson from TopSports.News. Nobody covers prep sports in the city of Topeka or Shawnee County better than Pistol. You can find him on Twitter at Peterson_Rick, and of course his work at TopSports.News. This is the Invista Credit Union High School whip around. Pistol, how you been?
I've been great.
We know that, Pistol, you do not like to make things about yourself. Like any good journalist, you do not want to be a part of the story, but I feel like you had to know when we found out this week that you are going to be one of the inductees this year to the Topeka Shawnee County Sports Hall of Fame. One, we were absolutely thrilled for you, and it was, I mean, this has been deserving for a long, long time. But what was that like to you to find out that you were going to be a part of the 2023 class?
Well, obviously, it's a great honor. I'm more than a little bit embarrassed by it. You know, I kind of tried to stay out of it for this is the third year that they talked to me about it, and I fought it off for a couple years. But guys like Ken Darting and Joe Schrag and Kim Berry, Vince Fry were on the committee, and they finally talked me into it. And like I said, it's a great, great honor, and I don't want anybody to think I'm not very, very grateful. I just kind of like to stay behind the scenes a little bit, but I guess I can put up with it for one night.
I was going to say, has this given you I mean, I'm sure tons of people have reached out to you to talk to you about it and to just talk about, you know, what an incredible honor it is. And obviously all the great work you've done for so many years here in Topeka and throughout your journalism career. What has the last week been like? And have you heard from people maybe you haven't heard from recently who have reached out to you to congratulate you on it.
Yeah, I have. And like I said, that's probably the biggest thing, Brendan, just hearing from some people, former coworkers like Ken Corbett and Kevin Haskett and a lot of coaches that have been very gracious about it. So that's the highlight for me.
Pistol, I have to say also extend my congratulations as well.
Well, thank
you. You're going in a class with Kevin Bordewick, with Crystal Kemp, and with Chris Barnes. Just talk about those three that you get to share that honor with, and your experiences with those three personalities that you get to share the spotlight with that night.
Well, that's a great honor, and I do want to say this. I was fighting this again this year, and Kevin Bordewick actually kind of got on my case a little bit and told me to don't be stupid and just enjoy it. So I got to give him credit for that. Blame or credit, I don't know which. But no, Kevin Bordewick I've worked with throughout his career when he was an assistant with Bill Annan, who is one of my absolute all-time favorites, and. So it is big to be able to go in with him. And then I've been trying to get Chris Barnes in there for probably 10 years. But, anybody that knows anything about pro bowling knows, especially when he's on both series, you're bowling about every single week. So we had to wait. And he kept saying, be patient. I'll make it back. And this year was the year that he could, and I'm super excited about that. And of course, I covered Crystal Kemp at Topeka High, another one, just a great athlete. A lot of people know she was all Big 12 at KU and left her mark there, but she was also a state discus champion in Class 6A. You don't have too many of those, so to double up in the discus and basketball. So I'm very, very proud of those. And, I'm glad to be number 4 in that group.
We're chatting with Rick Peterson from TopSports.news, joining us for the Invista Credit Union High School Whip Around here on 580 Sports Talk. Go follow Pistol on Twitter at Peterson_Rick and check out all of his phenomenal writing covering preps here in the capital city over at TopSports.news. Last thing about this, Pistol, because again, I know you'd rather be a little bit more in the background than at the forefront of this, but have you given any thought to who's going to induct you?
Yeah. The guy named Rick Peterson. Junior.
I think that's a pretty good fit, Pistol.
Yeah, Ricky's going to do it. Now, you talk about me being a little out of my element. Wait, Ricky is really out of his element. This is way, way, way out of his comfort zone. But I guess he didn't feel like he could tell Dad no. So we'll kind of fight through it together.
Oh, that's a very lovely father-son moment there, Pistol. Can't wait for that coming up later on this summer. We'll talk more about it as it gets closer on. We do have some prep sports we want to get to this week. We didn't get to chat last week, and we're a little short on time, so we'll get through as many topics as we can. I wanted to start off with some City Boys golf. Some really good team and individual showings this week, Pistol, at the Topeka City Championship. Shawnee Heights and Washburn Rural in particular with some good showings.
Yeah, Shawnee Heights came through with the city individual title, Tyler Lincoln yesterday. Washburn Rural continued its long streak in the team title. They won. Rural won by 21 strokes in the Centennial League meet on Monday. So yeah, it's a good week, and now we're getting down. They got a week to go, and then they go right to regionals and state.
Let's get a little bit of a preview of the rest of this golf season. Then I feel like we've missed out on some golf talk recently. How are things shaping up from a bigger competition sort of perspective? Does this feel like a strong year for the Topeka participants, or is there just a lot of depth in the competition, especially in these higher classes?
Well, Washburn Rural is always going to be good, but they they lost heavy graduation losses off last year's team. They've been kind of rebuilding and obviously doing a good job of that. I don't know if you can pencil them in, as a contender, as a top contender for the title, but they'll always be in the conversation, as Jared Goring likes to say. And then Alex Valdivia of Shawnee Heights and Miles Alonzo of Topeka West. I think both of those can be in the conversation for the individual title in 5A.
Let's take to the diamond to get some baseball and softball updates. Again, we didn't get to chat last week on the show, so let's get caught up a little bit, Pistol, on what's been going on. Let's start with the boys' side of baseball. I know there was a great matchup between Washburn Rural and Shawnee Heights earlier this week. What have been some of the big headlines over the last couple of weeks as we get ready for the start of the postseason here soon?
Well, Seaman in baseball, Seaman continues to roll. They've lost 3, but they were 3 tough losses and 3 losses to good teams. Shawnee Heights is down, record-wise, down a little bit from where they win. Hayden's had some really good wins. Rural's been struggling, but I still kind of expect them to surprise some teams in postseason. And then on the softball side, Washburn Rural's really playing well. Let's go out to the county. I mean, Silver Lake and Rossville in softball and Silver Lake in baseball are both really playing well. So we're going to get some highlights. We're definitely going to get some highlights. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Topeka High softball jump up and get somebody in postseason too.
You know how much I like to ask about the level of competition between our city teams and what things look like when we get to postseason play against the rest of the state. But I feel like for some sports specifically, that's a little bit easier when we have our 6 and 5A teams because, well, a lot of that competition is either in Wichita and we hear about it, or it's not all too far away in the Kansas City area. But when you look at 3A and you look at Silver Lake in the year they've had for softball, Rossville the year they've had for softball, based on what you know about the rest of the state in Class 3A, how deep is that class, and how do you think Silver Lake and Rossville stack up?
It's always deep, and there's always some good teams out there, as there were in 3A basketball.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of similar because a lot of those same athletes are playing both. But I definitely think Silver Lake and or Rossville both can make a run. And, it all depends kind of on your seedings and you got to make sure everybody's healthy. You got to make sure your arms are, fresh. And but I really think they can do it. And then I think Silver Lake softball, same way. It kind of depends on what kind of seed you got, where you have to go for a postseason, who you're going to get, and then really state anything can happen. A lot of times it's just whoever gets hot at that time is the team that's going to win it.
Last 2 questions I've got for you this Friday afternoon, Pistol, are both about 2 athletes who are getting ready to take the next step in their careers. First, how about Kiki Smith signing this week? I know Isaac Deere had a story over at topsports.news about this. She officially signs on to go to Evansville in Indiana, so she will get to go play D1 ball. Not any surprise there. What do you think of that fit for Kiki?
I think it's a good fit. I think the Missouri Valley is a great conference. I believe they're still in the Missouri Valley, aren't they?
I believe you're correct about that.
Everybody's changing conferences so much. I wouldn't be. But anyway, I think that's a great fit for her. Missouri Valley's a good conference, and I think she'll do a good job. I'm not exactly sure if whether they'll put her at the point or what they'll do, but she's certainly deserving.
Yeah, definitely got a diverse skill set and is going to be able to play anywhere they want around the perimeter. And you were right, Pistol. They are still in the MVC. They're one team that hasn't moved recently, so we know that one for sure. The other one, I know you got to catch up with Ty Zentner, the former Shawnee Heights kicker, and then had a great career and a great final season at Kansas State this past year. He signed as an undrafted free agent with the Philadelphia Eagles. That's a pretty dang good spot to be picked up just after the draft, a team that just made it to the Super Bowl. What did Ty have to say about his next step?
Well, he agreed with you. He thought it was a perfect fit for him, and he said they had shown him the most attention by far of any NFL teams. And he actually had his deal all set to go. They were ready to announce it as soon as the last pick was picked, and so they really wanted him, which always makes you feel good. And he's there now. He left Wednesday, so he's going through mini camp right now, and he's a very confident kid, a very great athlete that was really good in 3 sports at Shawnee Heights, and I think he'll do well.
Yeah, that's awesome. We got to talk to Ty a little bit last season when he took over the place kicker job at K-State, and love his personality, obviously a great kicker, and I think he's going to make the team, by the way, Pistol. I went to high school with their place kicker, Jake Elliott. We were high school classmates. He's darn good, but I think Ty's going to punt for them. I think he's going to make that team. Pistol, thank you so much for joining us a day later than normal. You can go follow Rick Peterson's work at topsports.news. Follow him on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. Pistol, congratulations again. It is just so awesome. We're super happy for you, and we're looking forward to talking to you next week.
Thank you.
That is Rick Peterson from topsports.news. He is the absolute best. So happy for Pistol. I know we knew it going in. Knew Pistol did not want to be, at the forefront and the center of attention. But Pistol, we're super happy for you, man. That is absolutely awesome for just a truly great man and a great asset to our community. That's going to do it for this 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. We've got headlines, what's on tap, and more coming up in the 5 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk.
Inflation has put
now, 1 hour to go today and 1 hour to go this week on 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan. That's the two of us in studio with you today. Thank you so much for being a part of the show today and throughout the week. We appreciate it so much. You are welcome to continue being a part of the show, either on the text line, 785-272-9429 is the text line number, or you can hop into the YouTube comment section. Our YouTube channel is called Sports on 580 WIBW. Easy to find. Just go to youtube.com, search for the name of the channel, and then it'll pop up. It'll be the first results. Click on that, and you'll be able to subscribe and see all of our videos that way. It's free to subscribe, by the way. It doesn't cost you a single thing except one click. And again, Sports on 580 WIBW is the name of our channel. Coming up here in this final hour of the show, we are going to get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines here in just a matter of moments, including today's playoff roundup and a lot of news to get to, a lot of it. We will preview this weekend's Royals series with the A's, including the opener tonight, Kyle Muller and Brad Keller, the two starting pitchers at the K. And we'll get to our what's on tap for the sports weekend NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs. We got NASCAR in Kansas City. We've got the Kentucky Derby on Saturday afternoon. All that and more coming up this hour here on 580 Sports Talk. We've also got some overtime coming up at 6 o'clock. Pregame begins at 6:30. First pitch at 7:10 tonight for Royals baseball. Let's jump right on in, though, to our 580 Sports Talk headlines for this Friday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo 2023. I'm going to start today, Dan, with some transfer portal news for both KU and K-State. It is both outgoing news. The first, and I don't mean this insultingly, but for now, less important piece of news, less urgent piece of news, Ish Massoud has found a new home. He is going to end up, this is actually a better opportunity for him than I thought he might end up with. Georgetown is his new home. He will play for Ed Cooley, one of my favorite coaches in all of college basketball. Started his career at Wake Forest before transferring to K-State, where he played for 2 years, the final year with Bruce Weber, this past year with Jerome Tang and company. Came up with some huge shots in the NCAA tournament. So he's going to spend his final year of eligibility at Georgetown. They are entirely overhauling that roster in Washington, D.C. I would imagine if he committed there, they are assuming he is going to be a starter. That's what he wanted. He wanted starter caliber minutes. He wanted more time on the floor. And if that's the case, good for Ish. That's a good fit for him, and I wish him nothing but the best at Georgetown.
That's how you want to handle the portal, right?
Yeah.
Like the idea is, if what that player wants isn't available for them at where they're at, they should be free to seek that out in another place. And Jerome Tang was frank with Ish Massoud that the way Ish Massoud viewed himself as a player was not how Jerome Tang viewed him as a player, and that Massoud's goals for his final year of college eligibility were not goals he was going to be able to meet at Kansas State. That was not the role he was going to play in Kansas State's program. So no hard feelings. You wish him well. He's able to go closer to home and find a place to play in a great conference at a great school and have an opportunity to be in the rotation for a team. Like you said, I mean, there was nowhere to go but up for Georgetown basketball. They might have been, they were the worst team in the Big East last year.
Yeah.
And one of the worst teams in all of Power 6 conference basketball. So an opportunity for him, and you hope he makes the most of it. And certainly a player that went into last year and even spent part of last year is maybe persona non grata is too strong, but is a guy that wasn't held in the highest of regard.
Yeah.
And
he was just a guy.
Yeah. And exits Kansas State as Big 12-ish, as Swish Massoud, as author of some of the biggest moments of a memorable Kansas State season, the game winner at Baylor, the huge shot at the end of the Kentucky game, the big three that helped them beat Kentucky, the big baseline jumper at the end of the Michigan State game. Ish Massoud, a big part of that story, and always will be, I think, fondly remembered.
Yeah, and I think that's important in this. And, what is important? Is it winning games? Is it how you're remembered? Whatever it is. But I think there's some value to, look, you didn't finish your career here, didn't start your career here either, but you were here for some beginning of the year, but you bought in, you were a key team player. Thank you for the memories. I think there's value to that. The other big news today in the transfer portal is that Zuby Ejiofor from KU has entered the portal. He will be leaving Kansas just in ahead of the deadline. We are just 6 days from the entry deadline to get into the portal this offseason and be immediately eligible next year. Zuby averaged under 2 points and just under 2 rebounds a game. I think it was 1.2 points, 1.7 rebounds. Good rebounder in terms of efficiency. Very good in that regard. Played sparingly. The only Big 12 game he played double-figure minutes in was the opener against Oklahoma State at Allen Fieldhouse way back at the end of December. In fact, December 31st was the date of that game. Had to play actually a lot against Arkansas in the NCAA tournament because KU was so shorthanded due to major foul trouble for both KJ Adams and for Ernest Uday. The math caught up to KU's big men, I think. And now the question for KU is, what's the next shoe to fall? I like Zuby. Zuby seems like a great team player. Everyone had positive things to say about him. Seemed like a really good locker room presence. Young guy still. He's got tons of time left, 3 more years of eligibility. He's going to end up at a good school. This does not feel to me like, I don't mean to insult Bobby Pettiford here, but when he entered the portal, it's probably, okay, you're probably not going to see another Kansas or a Kentucky go after this kind of player, but made it to a good program, a good mid-major-ish program, the next level down.
Somewhere where he was going to play a lot.
Yeah.
Where that would not have been a guarantee had he gone to another Power 5, Power 6.
Where he's still going to be on TV. He's still going to have opportunities, play some good games, play good non-conference games, but that felt like a good fit. Zuby's going to end up at a high major. I am certain of that. He can rebound. He was probably the best rebounder of the bigs that KU had. Now, a very unrefined offensive game, other things that kept him off the floor. And had Ernest jump him on the roster or on the depth chart early in the year. But I wish him nothing but the best. But this is the portal. I mean, this is the risk you run. And this is why we talked earlier about depth being a necessity versus a luxury, in that you would love to have Zuby next year because Hunter Dickinson's your 5 and he's going to play 30 minutes a game, if not more. And ideally, Ernest Uday is going to be your backup big and is going to play 10 to 12 minutes, somewhere in there. And now you got to make sure you're re-recruiting him and say, hey, I know we have Hunter Dickinson now, but you are the future. You are the next great Kansas big man. If Hunter's here for only a year, you've got 2 more years after that. You are the guy.
Like, you're going to play a lot. Like,
yes.
Backup center minutes, number 2 center, that's an important position. You're going to play a lot. You might play a whole lot if Dickinson is in foul trouble in a given night, which Dickinson, for all of his strengths as a player, one of them is staying out of foul trouble. So, but you need 2 bigs.
Yeah.
And Bill Self, I'm sure, has made that very clear to Ernest Uday. But it's hard to say you need 3.
Yeah, and
sort of like 3 quarterbacks. Like, you can have a bunch of guards, but as far as like centers.
Yeah. There are also whispers out there of maybe more movement coming to the KU roster. KU's actively and openly recruiting a 5-star prospect, a top 10 player in the class in Mackenzie Mbako. We talked about him yesterday, and we talked about him on Tuesday with Michael as well. Michael Swin from Fog.net. Someone in the recruiting class is probably thinking, man, I committed here thinking I was going to play as a freshman. But if you're recruiting someone in my same class over me, obviously you're interested in him. KU didn't recruit him originally. He was not a KU target when he committed to Duke. He pulled out at Duke when Kyle Filipowski announced he was coming back, surprising everybody. KU said, no, we want that guy now. If I was a freshman coming in at KU, really any freshman who's not Elmarco Jackson, I'd say, I don't know, man. I'm not reporting anything, by the way, but I can understand why maybe some guys would want to try something else if they find out they're being recruited over in their own class. But that's life in the portal, and with kids pulling out of their letter of intent, which I have no problem with, for the record, and guys transferring all over and recruiting veterans and whatnot, I've got no problem with guys moving on. It's tough for Zuby because I think there's a really good player in there. And maybe a freshman moves on too if KU also adds Mbako. It's a new era. It really is.
So there are 2 scholarships left again for Kansas. They had 2 open when Kyle Cuff hit the portal. Hunter Dickinson officially signed today. That was he committed and then signed. KU basketball tweeted that out earlier today.
Now KU can tweet pictures of him.
Yeah, he signed, sealed, delivered, all that good stuff. But now with Ejiofor's departure, they're back to 2 open slots, essentially. So they're going to fill them both. And I have to imagine one of them, I think they're going to keep looking. Because, again, the portal doesn't close until next week.
Yeah, to enter the portal, you still have 6 more days.
Yeah.
So guys who maybe didn't get combine invites, or maybe even so, they said, well, I did, but I don't want to go back to wherever I was playing. Still a lot of guys who could enter. here's an interesting point, and Swain brought this up over at fog.net. Can you go after a big name player? Like if Mbako commits, so DeJuan Harris is your one. And if Bill Self had his way, he'd probably play him 39 plus minutes.
Right.
He's going to be on the floor. He is your one for the next 2 years.
Right.
Arterio Morris is going to play. El Marco is going to play. Nick Timberlake already committed. You're not kicking out a transfer. He's going to play. You need a shooter, too. There's not enough shooting on the team still. You need a shooter. KJ's going to play. Dickinson's going to play. If you convince Uday, hey, we need you, he's going to play. And if you get Mbako, he's going to play because he's a 5-star prospect. Who are you recruiting for that final spot? Like, not that it's a good problem to have that you've got a lot of good players, but I think you can't really go after, the best player remaining because I don't think they would sign up for 8 to 10 minutes a game.
Who's the version of Jalen Coleman Lands or Isaiah Moss in this class that understands, hey, you're a veteran guy, you've got a ceiling, you're not going to play 30 minutes a night, but for 10 to 15 minutes, maybe 20, given a matchup, we need you to just go stand in the corner and wait for the ball because you'll get the ball.
Yeah.
But that's the final need. Yeah. Like that's the one thing is they need one more dead eye 3-point shooter.
I would have committed heinous crimes to get Isaiah Moss on last year's KU team. Heinous crimes to get that guy on KU's team. But that's your latest transfer portal update. Ish Massoud has a new home. Zuby Ejiofor leaving KU.
Continuing our 580 Sports Talk headlines, let's go ahead and jump right into everyone's favorite segment within a segment. It's the
Playoffs?
Roundup.
Playoffs?
We take a look at last night's playoff action. We'll start in the NBA, where, as one of us predicted last night, the Golden State Warriors dropped an anvil on the Los Angeles Lakers.
That they did.
Particularly in the third quarter. It is a weird thing happening with the Lakers right now that Anthony Davis is only really trying in every other game.
It's weird. If I may really quickly interject, now that we have legalized and widespread sports game, we like to talk about games and spreads and stuff on the show, but that is very quickly becoming the new fantasy football. Like, dude, we don't care about your bets. Like, okay, great. I will say, though, I had 2 different bets on Lakers players last night and both cashed. One of them being Anthony Davis under on points. Yeah. I was telling you yesterday, he yo-yos more than any other player I've ever seen.
Yes, he does.
He had, 11 points last night?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Come on. You got to have more than that. He also only played 3 quarters.
The Warriors made 21 3-pointers last night and cruised to a Game 2 victory. That series is now even at 1 apiece. So now everybody's on the level terms now. Everybody's got 2 games in each of their series. So now I think we get back on, for the time being, the 2 games per night schedule the rest of the way. The Nuggets and Suns have been off for the last 3 nights. Game 3 of that series tonight in Phoenix. No Chris Paul for the Suns, who is reportedly going to miss games 3, 4, and if necessary, 5. The Nuggets have a 2-0 lead in that series. Earlier than that, tonight will be game 3 of the Celtics-Sixers series. That series moves to Philadelphia, tied at 1. Joel Embiid will be presented with the MVP award before tip-off tonight in Philly.
Oh, I think Boston's going to win.
I think Boston wins the series.
Yeah, it's just...
unless Embiid is a fast healer, and we kind of know, given his history, he's really not.
No.
It's going to be really hard for him to play at the level he needs to play at to get the job done.
We get some fast acting HGH or something in here.
They tried the blood spinning, the PRP.
Yeah, it just sucks. I feel bad for Joel. I mean, he won an MVP. That's obviously a cool thing, but it sucks that in the biggest series again of his career, he's not going to be at full strength. And it sucks for the Sixers that their best player is not at full strength.
Yeah.
But I think the Celtics are going to get it done. Are we on a, well, never mind. You're a Nuggets fan. Never mind. I'm not going to say it. I was going to say there is a chance we could be on course for a rematch of last year's NBA Finals. I'm not necessarily cheering for that. I would like to see the Nuggets get there. But I think it is in the realm of possibility we could have a Warriors-Celtics rematch.
Yeah, there's certainly a realistic possibility. Like, I think the winner of Celtics-Sixers is going to beat the winner of Heat-Lakers, and fairly handily at that in the Eastern Conference Finals. Yeah, in the West, I stand by it. I thought if the Nuggets Suns winner would go to the NBA Finals out of the West, because for all of the star power in that Warriors Lakers series, like we've talked about, those are the 6 and the 7 seeds, and when you watch enough of that series, like you can see why.
Right.
Like there are reasons why that those were the 6 and the 7 seeds in the Western Conference. I think the Suns are going to get one from Denver this weekend. I don't know if it's going to be tonight or if it's going to be Sunday. I think they get one. I just think they have a game where, it always happens at home. Like the role players play well. Like Josh Okogie will make 4 3-pointers or something like that. But no Chris Paul. Like that was the one thing that the Suns were doing that was working against the Nuggets was Chris Paul pick and roll. Well, you kind of run it with Devin Booker, but it's not quite the same. So I just don't know. Like they've got great talent with their top 2 guys, and I don't want to come off like a homer, but it's hard for me to see a path forward for the Suns in this series without Chris Paul.
I will tell you this much. I know they're on the road. I know the Suns need a win. You're giving me Denver with 4 points today. I am intrigued by that. I am intrigued a lot by Nuggets +4 if I were to bet this game.
In the NHL last night, Maple Leafs.
This was so predictable. Entirely predictable.
19 years without a trip to the second round. The Maple Leafs have gotten there and now do not know what to do with themselves. They gave up 2 goals in, I think, a 17-second span in the second period and fall to the Florida Panthers 3-2 last night. Panthers with a 2-0 series lead on Toronto in the Eastern Conference semifinals. Also, the Dallas Stars even their series with a convincing win over the Seattle Kraken. That series is 1-1. Tonight, Game 2 in the Eastern Conference between the Devils and Hurricanes. The home team, Carolina, leads that series 1-0. Game 2 in the West between the Oilers and the Golden Knights. Vegas, the home team, with a 1-0 series lead.
That's so predictable by the Maple Leafs. This has been an incredibly hard playoffs to predict, I think, just from my casual hockey follower perspective.
Road teams have been disproportionately successful in a way that doesn't make a whole lot of historical sense.
Which leads me to believe that eventually that's going to regress to the mean, right?
You'd think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you would think. Who you got tonight?
Tonight, I'll say the Devils bounce back and even that series, and I'll say I think we'll have 2 even series. I got the road teams tonight.
Are there 2 games tonight?
Yes. Or I thought Devils.
No, Oilers are tomorrow.
Oh, Oilers have tonight off.
Yeah, just Carolina, New Jersey tonight.
Interesting.
Yeah,
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I'll join you on that. I say New Jersey gets it done,
okay,
unless my guy Dr. Moneyline.
Just New Jersey, Carolina tonight. Yeah.
Unless I get a tip here to take Carolina again, I think I'll take the Devils. Moving on in our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today on this Friday, Cinco de Mayo. Some news for the Kansas City Royals. They made a couple of moves up and down from Omaha and with the IL today. Unfortunately, Kyle Isbell is going to be out a few weeks due to the injury he suffered yesterday. He's on the 15-day IL. And Nate Eaton has been recalled from AAA in his stead. So welcome back, Nate Eaton. And the crowd goes completely silent. Also, some pitching movement. I'm looking for an explanation for this one. I'm wondering if you might have it. Austin Cox is being sent down. He was very good in relief yesterday in his MLB debut. He's being sent down after 2 innings of work. Jonathan Heasley is being called up. I assume that is to start. But I also thought Austin Cox was going to start. So I'm a little bit confused by that move to bring Jonathan Heasley up into what I assume is the rotation.
Yeah, I don't get it either. To be completely honest with you, I do not get it either because Austin Cox was starting. He wasn't going deep into games, but he was starting down at AAA. You could have rode with him, and maybe they figured, okay, he's going to be a emergency long relief, and if we use him in that capacity, then we can't really start him the next turn. So then Heasley's your next option. Maybe that's how the gears are turning.
Maybe,
but can't swear to that. Haven't heard anything officially on the matter yet from Matt Cotrero or anyone else. Doesn't sound good for Kyle Isbell. Sounds like he's going to be out 6 weeks. It's a grade 2 hamstring strain.
Ugh.
And so that is a bummer. So
yeah,
get ready for a lot more Jackie Bradley Jr. Although Aaron Rodgers did report that Michael Garcia could see some innings in center field.
Okay. Interesting.
So I can't wait for them to roll out the Olivares, Garcia, Melendez outfield of three guys who aren't really outfielders.
I won't watch. I might listen to that game, but I would not watch that because, oh God, that would not go well.
I'm going to look. Has Michael Garcia ever played a game in center field in professional baseball? Go ahead and guess. Go ahead. Guess. Guess if he's ever played a game in center field in Major League Baseball.
No.
He has not.
I figured.
Guess if he's ever played one in winter ball.
No.
No, he isn't.
Oh my God. I love that. Like the Royals' philosophy for about 4 years of let's only draft shortstops coming to a head when they need to play a freshly graduated player who's never been an outfielder in the outfield because they just refuse to draft them.
It's the meme from Moneyball. First base isn't hard. Tell him, Wash. It's incredibly hard. Like the Royals seem to be approaching this like outfield's not hard. How hard can it be? We only play in one of the most vast outfields in Major League Baseball. It can't be that hard.
This is going to be John Sherman's next selling point of a downtown stadium. We are going to have the narrowest outfield.
We need a smaller outfield.
We're going to have the weirdest proportions ever.
So that there is less ground for MJ Melendez to have to cover. Anything over his head is just going to be a home run anyway.
That's extremely funny. I think you had an update earlier this week on Drew Waters. I think we had an update on Drew Waters.
Yeah, it wasn't a good one. He tweaked something while preparing for his rehab assignment. So plans for a rehab assignment for him have been put on hold. There is this update, though, about Daniel Lynch, and this is a much happier update that Lynch threw a bullpen today. 65-75 pitch bullpen, or no, I'm sorry. He threw a bullpen. His next rehab start will be Sunday in Omaha, and he'll be in the 65-75 pitch range.
Okay.
And if all goes well there, maybe his next start will be with the Royals.
That'd be nice. We'd take that. Very happily would take Daniel. I would take Daniel Lynch over Jonathan Heasley. I know that for sure.
Let's go ahead and get a couple of more sports notes in here on the sports headlines. This actually broke kind of late in our show yesterday. Big Giants defensive tackle Dexter Lawrence got paid a 4-year, $90 million extension, which includes $60 million guaranteed, making Lawrence the third highest paid defensive tackle in the NFL behind Aaron Donald of the Rams and Jeffrey Simmons of the Titans. The 25-year-old Lawrence was staying away from the start of the voluntary workouts because of a contract disagreement. Obviously, that has all been ironed out. $60 million guaranteed is tied with Donald and Chris Jones for the second most guaranteed to a defensive tackle. The record, Drawn Payne of the Commanders got $60.02 million guaranteed on the contract he signed this offseason.
Can you tell me who led nose tackles in the NFL in quarterback pressures last year?
Was it Dexter Lawrence?
It was Dexter Lawrence. I think he's a pretty underrated player. He's really, really darn good. I'm looking at his PFF grades right now. A lot of green and a lot of blue. And for those who are not in the know, it's a number scale, but they assign colors to these numbers as well. Blue is elite. Blue is great. Dark green, really good. Regular green, good. A lot of blue and green on his chart from this past year. He's a darn good player. And he's, different than Chris Jones because he's going to line up as that one technique. He's going to be over the ball or just off the ball, whereas Chris Jones is going to be the three technique. But he's obviously flexible as well and can bend to the outside. That's a good player. I don't think this is going to affect the Chris Jones contract all too much because I do think Jones is still a better player. I think the Jeffrey Simmons deal earlier this offseason probably played a bigger role in what Chris Jones will eventually get. I like this, though, for the Giants and for Lawrence, because if he's that dude, and I think he is, you got for a pretty good deal for the next 4 years. So, no, I like that for New York.
And speaking of New York, another Major League Baseball note to get to: the former Dark Knight of Gotham, Matt Harvey, former Kansas City Royal Matt Harvey,
yeah,
today announced his retirement from baseball on his Instagram page, saying goodbye baseball and thank you. Matt Harvey, man, it was a supernova, but supernovas often burn brightly and then fade away. And that is what happened. Matt Harvey was a phenom in 2012 and 2013. He was one of the very best pitchers in baseball in 2013 before his arm went out. He came back in 2015, was again outstanding, and helped pitch the Mets to the World Series, where infamously he was left in a certain World Series game a few batters too long. And of course, that lives happily in the memory of Royals fans everywhere. He was never the same pitcher after that. First 3 seasons, ERAs all under 3. Final seasons, ERA. The next year is ERA 486, then 670, then 700, then 450, then 709, 1157, and 627. His ERAs the rest of his career. Finishes with a 50 and 66 career record in 180 games, 172 starts, and a 442 earned run average, including 7 games, 4 starts with the 2020 Royals, in which he posted an 0-3 record and an 11.57 ERA. But when Matt Harvey was young and just up from the minor leagues, Matt Harvey Day was a phenomenon. He was the kind of guy you would turn on the TV to watch. And I think there were probably some regrets. I would imagine there will be some regrets on maybe how he took care of himself, maybe how he handled the tabloid attention that he got in New York at the height of his popularity and fame. But it just goes to show you, man, pitchers are fragile. And enjoy the great ones and appreciate the ones that are great for a long period of time, because, man, Matt Harvey burned out in a hurry.
He had a moment where he was the biggest athlete in New York. I mean, he was with supermodels. He was, appointment television,
Met Gala. He was a superstar.
He was the guy. I was a hater. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. I was a Matt Harvey hater. Hate. Like the Chappelle show bit. I was never a Harvey fan. Some real tragedy that he got wrapped up in near the end of his career as well. It's just a very peculiar and maybe not entirely unique, but at least somewhat unique way his career unfolded. Just the way he became a star overnight, and then it just became like Randy the Ram Robinson, essentially, trying to get back to his glory days.
Among the injuries he dealt with in the second half of his career included thoracic outlet syndrome, which has typically been very, very hard for pitchers to come back and be the same from. But thought that was noteworthy. Former Royal adversary, and for a brief shining moment, one of the very best pitchers in baseball, Matt Harvey, hanging it up.
Talking earlier about the Mets just always being in a state of being uncomfortable. Look at that pitching rotation from 2015. And the fact that they didn't win jack with it. They won 1 pennant.
They won a pennant. I mean, and that's not nothing. But yes, I mean,
after that, it just cratered.
If you had told me after 2015 that was going to be the height of it for a rotation with Matt Harvey and Noah Syndergaard and Jacob deGrom and Steven Matz, like those are their top 4 guys. And now like Harvey's out of baseball. Syndergaard is just a guy. His arm has blown out. DeGrom is the one who got better from there and has been unbelievable, but can't stay healthy. Again, pitchers are fragile, especially in this era more than others. And all those dudes threw super hard with super spinny breaking balls, and the human arm is only but so equipped to handle years and years of that.
That does it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Let's take a quick break. We'll preview Royals A's this weekend coming up after this on 580 Sports Talk. have a 3-game weekend set beginning tonight. Pre-game begins at 6:30. First pitch is at 7:10 on the Royals Radio Network here on 580 WIBW. We've got 580 Sports Talk overtime to get you ready for that. We will listen back to our conversation with Matt Derrick from earlier today, our Chiefs insider. That's coming up at the top of the 6 o'clock hour. Your pitching matchups for this weekend. Tonight, it's Kyle Muller for the A's against Brad Keller for the Royals. Ken Waldachuk for the A's tomorrow against Brady Singer. Ken Waldachuk sounds like somebody who wore gigantic, thick-rimmed glasses and pitched from 1972 to 1978.
Ken Waldachuk sounds like a guy who played left wing for the Gretzky-era Kings.
And then type 1 diabetes hero Mason Miller, he takes on Ryan Yarbrough on Sunday. Or is he type 2?
I think he's type 2.
He might be type 2. In which case he's still part of the brotherhood.
He's a fascinating story because like he wouldn't grow.
He's type 1.
Oh, he is type 1?
Yeah.
Like he couldn't put like muscle on. He couldn't gain weight. And people just tell him eat. That wasn't the problem. It was So anyway, he ends up at like a Division III school, and he's no great shakes pitching in Division III athletics. And now here he is. Like right now, he's probably the best starting pitcher on the Oakland A's.
Oh, there's no might about it.
Is a booby prize, but like just watch him. Like if you're gonna tune in for a game, watch Mason Miller. Like be a looky-loo on Mason Miller on Sunday and watch this dude throwing 100 with like 99 mile an hour cutters and huge sliders. Like the stuff is legitimate.
Yeah.
Muller and Waldachuk have ERAs of 6.28 and 7.26, respectively.
The A's are awful.
Waldachuk has given up 10 home runs in 31 innings.
Seems problematic.
Pitching in Oakland, not a great hitter's park.
No. In fact, a pretty good pitcher's park. If the Royals are going to win any series all year, it should be this one. You are at home against what I believe is easily the worst team in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm biased because I just watched the Nationals somehow sweep the Cubs, who they played terribly. But like watching the A's is just sad, man. It really is
sad for a lot of reasons.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's layers to that. I don't want to say there's no excuses because the Royals are also terrible, but they're not the A's. Like the A's don't have a Vinny Pasquantino on that roster. They've got a couple guys who can hit decently, but they don't have the combination of Pasquantino, Witt, Melendez is a better hitting trio than anything the A's could put together. And I don't think it's even close.
A texter from the 785 points out that the combined record for these two teams is 14-50, and that it is hard to imagine. They did legwork that if we did, we'd probably come to a similar conclusion. It is hard to imagine there's ever been a worse matchup of two teams at this stage in the season.
That's a great question or a great thought, and that's probably correct. I cannot imagine a worse one. So 14-50 is the combined record, which means it's 64 total games.
Yeah, 32 games in for both teams. The A's are 6-26.
Dan, that is a winning percentage of .219 combined.
Oh my hell!
For two major league teams. Bad management, man. For the Royals, it was people who did not know how to scout, apparently, how to draft.
And yet there's still like a twinge of annoyance in this for the Royals.
Right.
Because the best hitter for the Oakland A's, reigning American League Player of the Week, and leader in all of baseball in OPS as of today, former Royal Brent Rooker. Brent Rooker, 28 years old, talking about guys who really can't play the corners of the outfield, but that's where they're sent anyhow. Was, I think, a waiver claim by the Royals last year. Spent 14 games with the club, went 4 for 25 at the plate. Minnesota had already given up on him, the team that drafted him. And now here he is in Oakland with 9 home runs in his first 25 games this year and a major league leading 1.112 OPS.
I brought this up the other day on the show, and Rainey Gisarely put this on Twitter, that, look, it's not that the annoyance is not that the Royals let this guy walk.
Yes.
The annoyance is that why didn't we get anything out of him? And yet he goes to a worse team and, frankly, a worse franchise and he's one of the best hitters in baseball through a month.
I'm sorry, he was not a free talent pickup. He was acquired in a 1-for-1 deal for Cam Gallagher. I forgot about that.
What's Cam Gallagher up to?
I think he's backup catcher for the Guardians. Yeah, he's appeared in 11 games this year, hitting .074.
Sounds like a Royal.
Yeah, so this might just be the best month of Brent Rooker's life. And if I had to guess, it probably is. I mean, he had 9 home runs in 213 plate appearances in 2021 when Minnesota begged him to take a starting job, and he just could not run with it because he struck out so much. He is walking more this year, which is good, and striking out less, but he's always had the propensity. I mean, that's why it made him a first-round pick. He hit the ball a ton in college at Mississippi State. So he's getting a chance to do it. And listen, some athletes from the remove of pressure are able to be their best. Brent Rooker had to try and win a job in Minnesota. Didn't happen. Probably felt like Kansas City, the third team he'd appeared for in 2 years, felt like he was fighting for a job there. Didn't perform. Comes to Oakland, and I bet that the message to him has been, hey, look, you're going to be in the lineup every day. Relax. We're going to see what you got. We're going to really see what you got. You got nobody breathing down your neck, Lord knows. You got nobody challenge you for playing time. Just go play. And I am not surprised whenever an athlete thrives in the absence of pressure. And there is no less of a pressure situation than being the cleanup hitter for the 6-26 Oakland Athletics. So good for Brent Rooker. I don't think it's an indictment of the Royals that he's doing this in Oakland that he wasn't doing in Kansas City.
That's fair. Entirely fair. I agree with the that perspective, by the way, that without pressure, guys sometimes perform differently. I have a vivid memory of Ryan Dempster having the best half a season of his life with the Cubs in what year was that? 2012, I believe it was. I believe that was 2012. He was having an incredible season, and the Cubs sucked. We were unwatchably bad, just miserable. Cubs traded him to the Rangers. He was okay for the Rangers the rest of that year, but the Rangers were in a playoff push. That was a team that was trying to win World Series at the time, and he was okay. He was a middle-ish of the rotation starter who had just decent numbers. The Cubs ended up getting back Kyle Hendricks, who was the key piece of a World Series winning team. He had no pressure to perform in Chicago because the team was god-awful. Goes to the Rangers, there's real pressure, not quite as much. So I agree with you on that 100%.
And look, pressure busting pipes is human nature.
Yes.
Like that's most of us.
Yes, absolutely is.
That's the overwhelming majority of us, even the ones of us who are good enough at sports to make a living doing it, like Ryan Dempster or like Brent Rooker. But yeah, when you have no pressure and you can just go and play, and it feels like Legion ball, probably. Show up to the park, rake, go home. Don't worry about the result because nobody else is. Clearly your bosses aren't.
Just go have fun.
Show up, put the uni on, rake, and go home.
Seems like a pretty good life to me, honestly.
Yeah, no joke.
Let's get to another timeout. What's on tap for the rest of the weekend? We'll tell you next on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk, finishing up the week. Busy sports weekend coming up. Dan, what are you going to be watching?
Well, certainly the NBA playoffs. Nuggets, Suns, game 3 tonight, game 4 on Sunday. Hoping the Nuggets can at least get one, though I hope they're thinking differently than I am. I hope that they are less tentative about this whole enterprise and less afraid to speak into existence the thing I have wanted since I was 4 years old. And I hope they go out and they take care of business this weekend. That'd be great. I would really enjoy that. Keep an eye on the Royals series because they're winnable games. I think there's going to be a lot of offense because these pitching staffs aren't very good. So looking forward to maybe some fireworks at Kauffman Stadium this weekend as well.
Running the Run for the Roses, the 149th running of the Kentucky Derby coming up tomorrow, late afternoon, post time, just before 6 o'clock Central. Andy Weingarten, former WIBW employee, longtime horse racing expert. Earlier today on Mic'd Up, he gave Angel of Empire as his pick to win, Rocket Can as his long shot pick. Love that one. There's a horse that's running tomorrow named Raising Cane.
Yes, there is.
I have a very hard time picking against a horse named Raising Cane. I feel like I'm obligated to put a shekel or two on that horse. I have not made my pick officially yet. I am going to wait until sometime tomorrow to make my official pick.
So a quick note to our listeners who might be looking forward to the Run for the Roses and might desire to make a bet on the Kentucky Derby. Sorry, you can't. The laws in the state of Kansas do not allow for betting on horse racing. Parimutuel bets on horse racing are illegal. So if you are within the Kansas state lines and you would otherwise be able to bet on just about any other sporting event you please this weekend on FanDuel or any other provider, you can't. So there are other solutions. There are other sports books that are housed not in the United States, but in some other countries, perhaps, where you can get some action down. But if you're just thinking you can pull out your phone and open up FanDuel and bet on Raising Cane to place, I have bad news for you. You cannot do that.
I think you would have to make a trip to Iowa to make that happen, or Colorado, I suppose.
A question from the 785. Why is that the case? I don't know, man. I honestly don't know.
I had no idea. I was telling Dan earlier, I opened the FanDuel app last night. I was just about to go to bed when I often place, my bets before the lines drop in the morning. I will go and take a late at night. And I saw a little banner on the FanDuel app that said something to the effect of, you cannot bet on horse racing in your state. I thought, is that so? I was not aware of that. By the way, we didn't touch on this when it happened because I missed this story. Apparently, we are getting closer to the tribal casinos in the state, at least up north here, having the ability to open sports books and have online sports wagering as well.
That's right. Yeah, Prairie Man should be not too long before they've got their own sports book option. And I believe that would come with an app as well. I think it's the plan for that.
Another question here from Matt on the YouTube comments about that. What if you're out of state but reside in Kansas? Can you bet on them? Yes. Your state of residence doesn't matter for that. It's just the state where you actually place it. And we were talking about how regulated sports gambling is. They know, like, if you are just on to the Missouri side of the border, but you wanted to place a bet while you were in Kansas, you can't do that. They are going to know. They are going to block you from that. But if you live in Kansas, but you are in Colorado for the weekend, for example, and you want to place a bet, you are absolutely able to do that. So if you are making a trip to one of our neighboring-ish states where you can bet on horses, you should have no problem in being able to do that. And NASCAR this weekend, by the way, in Kansas City. That's coming up too. 48,000 people will be packed in. I'm sure it'll be sold out. A lot of NASCAR fans in the area. There was a driver in town yesterday, but I don't know who. Fulton said there was someone at a coffee shop down, 7 Brew down on Wanamaker.
That was for something. That was for ARCA, I think. That was an ARCA
ARCA
car.
racer. Okay.
I believe.
Fulton did not know who it was, and I asked a couple of names, and he did not seem to know. So I just said, oh, okay, well, I will drop it then. Yeah, I didn't know if that was a NASCAR driver or not. First of 2 races at the Kansas Speedway during this calendar year. Let's get to a quick break. We'll wrap up 580 Sports Talk for the week with the final word after this.
Wrap it up.
Time to wrap up the week on 580 Sports Talk. By the way, I was reminded by Mark on the YouTube comments of Coronation is tomorrow. You going to get up and watch that?
We fought a war that says I don't have to care about that.
Damn right about that.
We fought and won a war that says I don't have to care about that.
Yeah, so go drink that.
Final word for me, if you happen to be this weekend, you might want to bring your glove because these are the two of the most homer-prone staffs in baseball, particularly Saturday. Ken Waldachuk, who's given up nearly 3 homers per 9, is on the bump for the A's. If you happen to be in the left field seats, definitely bring your mitt. You might be going home with a souvenir.
Final word for me. Enjoy the Kentucky Derby tomorrow, the start of the Triple Crown, America's most famous horse race, maybe the world's most famous horse race. Should be fun, always is. The broadcaster NBC is one of the best sports broadcasts of the whole year, always fun. And I will be cheering on the ponies with you coming up tomorrow, late afternoon.
Who's going to win?
What the hell, Raising Cane.
All right.
I don't hold me to that, but for now, I'm going to pick Raising Cane. That's going to do it for 580 Sports Talk today and this week. We've got some overtime coming up at the top of the hour to lead you into Royals baseball against the A's coming up tonight. We will rejoin you on Monday from 3 until 6 after Mic'd Up from noon until 3. Don't forget to check out the podcast at 580WIBW.com. But until next week, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. Thank you so much for listening to 580 Sports Talk. We'll chat with you on Monday.